Good evening. We're calling to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the El Segundo City Council, Tuesday, October 15th. Please rise. Pastor Brandon Cash from the Oceanside Christian Fellowship will give the invocation, and Kevin Gowder from Troop 773 will lead us in the pledge. Pardon?
I think you got me tonight. I don't see.
Okay. Our city clerk will give our invocation.
Heavenly Father, we pray for guidance and direction as matters of importance are discussed this evening. May the decisions made here benefit all of the citizens of our community. Amen.
Kevin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, so this evening we have a distinct honor. Los Angeles County Supervisor Janice Hahn inherited a passion for public service from her late father, Supervisor Kenneth Hahn, who held public office in Los Angeles County for 50 years and who left behind an incredible legacy of service. Janice Hahn was elected to the Los Angeles City Council in 2001 and represented the 15th District, spanning from the port communities of San Pedro and Wilmington through Harbor City, Harbor Gateway, and Watts. She made a name for herself on the council as a champion for working people, securing health care for LAX workers and a living wage for Los Angeles hotel workers. She operated by the philosophy that our communities could have clean air and good jobs, and negotiated new green policies at the Port of Los Angeles. When gang violence surged in Watts, Janice Hahn created the Watts Gang Task Force, which fostered new trust between the local community and law enforcement and is credited with reducing shootings among youth in the Watts area by 2/3. In 2011, Janice Hahn won a special election to Congress. For 5.5 years, Congresswoman Hahn represented her constituents in Washington, serving on the House Homeland Security Committee, Committee on Small Business, and the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. She founded the Ports Caucus and recruited over 100 of her fellow House members as colleagues in order to advocate for ports issues and infrastructure. She was a leader in the fight to implement common sense gun violence prevention legislation and to reform our broken immigration system. During her time in Congress, Janice Hahn had a reputation for working to find common ground across the political aisle on behalf of the American people. In 2016, Janice Hahn was elected to the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, following in her father's footsteps. As supervisor for the 4th District, she is making addressing the homelessness crisis her top priority. She also is working to step up the fight for environmental justice for communities plagued by pollution and health problems. The reason we invited Supervisor Hahn here tonight is you're probably aware that there's been an issue with Vista Del Mar for a couple of months where they restriped it without a lot of community input, and it caused a lot of issues. In El Segundo, we were particularly concerned about safety. Our fire department is closer to Vista Del Mar and Dockweiler Beach than LA Fire Department is, so we do a lot of mutual aid responses there. We were very concerned about commute and transport times to the Marina Hospital increasing, as well as what it was doing to the tsunami evacuation route, which goes from Torrance to Culver City. So very, very concerned about safety. Trying to reach out to the City of Los Angeles and Councilmember Bonin and not having much success. We worked with electeds from Manhattan Beach and Hermosa Beach, and we weren't making a lot of headway. And then a few weeks ago, Supervisor Hahn was kind enough to invite us to her office to talk about the issues and our concerns and solutions. And Supervisor Hahn was wonderful. She had the Director of County Public Works there and County Harbor and Beaches, or Beaches and Harbors. And it was all about coming up with solutions and not coming up with blame. And Supervisor Hahn she, I think, gets complete credit. Thank you for reaching out to Council Member Bonin and working with him and coming up with solutions that actually are restoring Vista Del Mar, and also looking at other other streets, Culver, Jefferson, Pershing, and coming up with solutions that work with everyone. So we are so grateful to you for being so proactive and coming up with solutions. I fully believe this would not have happened without your leadership. And as we talked about your ability to reach across the aisle, to really reach across your district and talk to different council members and understand the concerns. And we have you to thank for the solutions. So we are thrilled to have you here. We have a tile we'd like to present you with our thanks and to take some photos with you. And then if you'd like to say a few words. And I'm also going to say if anybody in the audience, like maybe our young scout, would like to come up and take a photo with you, it's really an honor to have a supervisor. A supervisor, how many people are in your district, ma'am? 2 million. She is responsible for 2 million of us. So, I mean, it's such an honor to have you here. Thank you for your work on behalf of our city and the region. You are a true public servant. So with that, council.
Well, thank you, Mayor Fuentes and council members, to city clerk, city manager, to all the distinguished residents, other council members here in El Segundo. You have such a great city. You have such a great city. And, you know, listening to you read my biography, I was impressed.
It is impressive.
You did a lot of stuff. No wonder I'm exhausted. But there is a common theme. And the common theme for me is bringing everybody together. Because I always believe that problems have a solution, but you need to get everybody to the table. And when I listened to whether it was environmental issues or port issues, you know, if I could bring labor, business, the environmentalists together, it was always a better product at the end. And I'll tell you, in Congress, while I'm thrilled to be out of there and home, you know, there really is an aisle in Congress. And they sit on one side and we sit on the other side. And, you know, you don't eat together, you don't meet together. And I always thought, you know, if I can really reach across that aisle and find common ground, because what I find is in this country, and I'm sure in this county, we actually have more in common than we do that divides us. But you have to work to find out what that is. But I will say, being in the city of El Segundo, your residents are lucky to have you, Mayor Fuentes, and Mayor Pro Tem Boyles was also there, because you also came to the meetings that I convene with the willingness to find a solution. And, you know, everybody was angry. Your constituents were angry. They were expecting you to do something. But you said, you know what? Let's sit down at the table. Let's hear the solutions and see if this regional problem could have a regional solution. So the residents of El Segundo are lucky to have you and the other council members working together. And that's why groups like the COGS and like SCAG and like, you know, contract cities, independent cities, that's why those groups are important, because we can all work together and learn from each other. So if that's the only thing I did was facilitate smarter people than me, like Mayor Fuentes and some of the other mayors, to just figure out how to craft a solution, I was there to help make it happen. So it was my pleasure. I look so forward. I feel so lucky that El Segundo is one of my cities in the 4th Supervisorial District, and I'll fight for the big issues like the Air Force Base, and I'll fight to make sure we have transportation projects built that benefit El Segundo. But when it comes to something as basic as the road that people travel to and from their jobs, if I can help make that a better experience for people, then I'm as happy to fight as hard for that as I do for the Air Force Base. So what an honor to be in your lovely, lovely city. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. And I encourage everyone to say goodbye to Supervisor Hahn when she leaves. She was very kind to stop by tonight, or take a picture. Yeah. Hey. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Supervisor. Thank you for everything. Okay, we have a presentation of our investment portfolio report from our Treasury Department this evening.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Krista Binder, the City Treasurer. So I'd like to present the quarterly investment portfolio report and for the period ending of June 2017, and then we'll also talk to you a little bit about our current activity. So here's the portfolio breakdown between short-term and long-term portfolio. The short-term we like to call the liquidity portion of our portfolio, which is what we hold in order to pay the city's obligations. And then the longer term or core portfolio, which is the money that we don't need, so investing of our idle cash balances. This shows our compliance with our investment policy. So as you can see, it covers the maximum maturities, the percentage of assets per each of the type of securities that we own, the credit quality, which is related to our corporate securities, and you can see that we're in compliance with the policy. And this was something that we added, which we've talked about before. When we buy corporate securities, we don't like to invest more than a certain percentage in each asset class, and then in each issuer. So an issuer would be, for example, IBM or General Electric or one of those. So you can see that we're way under our 3% per issuer. So we like to, that just shows diversification. And then also the credit quality of these securities, which are all A-rated and above. This shows our commitment to continuing education. So during this quarter, the Deputy Treasurer and the City Treasurer attended the California Municipal Treasury Association's annual conference in Newport Beach, where we got a lot of great training. So we're far exceeding our requirement of the investment policy. This also demonstrates our commitment to diversification by asset class. So this breaks down the different types of investments we hold in our local pool, collateralized bank deposits we hold, negotiable certificates of deposits, fixed income instruments, both corporate notes and federal agency securities. And then we are still committed to laddering out the portfolio. So you can see we've done some good work in the 1 to 4 year range. We're not investing too far out past that. The yield curve, which we'll show you on the next slide, is sort of flattening out. So we try to pick up the yield where we can at the best yearly durations. And this is a quarter over quarter picture of the Treasury yield curve. So as I said before, the blue line demonstrates the prior reporting period, and then you can see the red line is the most recent reporting period. So it's the short term is coming up, the long term sort of then flattens out. So when you see that, you tend to want to get a little bit shorter in your investments because that's where the benefits of the yield are. And then this again demonstrates kind of the rates really haven't done much actually since I've been the city treasurer. The longer term, it's not like the yields we had in 2008 where the 1 month LIBOR was at 6%. So, still very, very low yielding rates. And now I'd like to hand off the presentation to our Deputy City Treasurer 2, Dino Marsoci.
Good evening. So this slide here is just the one we've seen before, showing the disbursements and receipts for each month throughout the last year. And then what I want to highlight is on the next slide, which just shows the net change in cash. And the differences there, just so you can see compared to last year, April is much higher because the Chevron payment of about $6.6 million came in of April of this year, whereas it came in March of last year. So that's why we have differences in March of April between last year and this year. June, the difference between last year and this year, last year we had $2.6 million in residential sound insulation reimbursements. And then conversely, this year we had that was receipts, residential sound insulation receipts. This June, we had extra disbursements for 3 payrolls in the month, and then about $2 million for some public works projects. So for the current activity, actually what we have here, since April 1st, our net investment in corporate bonds is up $1.9 million. We purchased 5 corporate bonds and had 1 mature. In CDs, we've increased our investments in CDs by $2.2 million. We purchased 10 CDs, and a lot of this, the bonds and the CDs, looking at the excess capacity, as Krista mentioned, where we had compliance limits for how much we could invest in CDs and bonds. We had plenty of capacity there, and we're finding that the corporates in the CDs is where we can pick up the most yield. So that's why we bought 10 CDs and 2.2 million of those. And then conversely, on agencies, we had some maturities and 1 item call. So our investments there decreased by 1.7 million. But net increase since April 1st through today is $2.4 million. And that was more at a higher yield. So year to date, we're picking up almost 40 basis points over the maturities. And then on the economic indicators, you can see gross domestic product, GDP. Actually, the first estimate for the second quarter is 2.6%, which was actually pretty good. Revised for Q1 was 1.2%. So we're definitely moving in the right direction as far as GDP is concerned. July consumer spending and manufacturing has come in a bit higher, so there's a good chance we could have a good Q3 GDP as well. And then unemployment, as I'm sure you've heard, has remained very low, below 4.5%. And inflation, which is the third item that the Fed looks at, whether it's to decide to raise rates or not, is still well below the 2% and trending lower. So that is one of the concerns that they have about raising interest rates. And then the projection, so far this year, they've raised rates twice, up to 1% to 1.25. You can see the March projection, they thought they would raise sooner and higher, but then the red line showing June looks like it'll be a little bit longer before they get up to, close to 3%. They're saying now 2 years and in a little bit slower pace. This morning I got an email from one of the brokers saying that we have about a 34% chance of an increase in December. And I don't know if anyone has any questions.
So is December the next time an increase will be considered? Nothing between now and then?
No, September's meeting is also on the table.
Okay. But the so-called experts are thinking there's a 1 in 3 chance that there'll be an increase at the December meeting.
We think they may raise it one more time between now and December.
Between now and December, Okay.
But that changes daily. So
Yeah,
It does.
No matter what happens, it won't move much.
yeah.
It'll be a quarter.
Right. Thank you.
Any other comments?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
They're always very educational. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Perstuck,
Here.
Councilmember Brown,
Present.
Councilmember Dugan,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyles, absent, Mayor Fuentes,
Here. Now is the time for public communications related to city business only. 5-minute total, 30-minute, or 5 minutes each, 30-minute total. Elise, before you speak, how many people want to speak today during public communications? Okay. Go ahead, Elise, thank you.
I'm Elise. I am your representative for the South Bay Workforce Investment Board, and I come to, yes, that lovely white packet that you can take home for your lovely bedtime reading. This is a brief summary of the fourth quarter report for the South Bay Web, as it's called. The report summarizes the July 20th, 2017 South Bay Workforce Investment Board meeting activities and program accomplishments during the fourth quarter of this program year. First, the South Bay One Stop Business and Career Center held 10 recruitment fairs during the fourth quarter. Over 200 job seekers attended the recruitment fairs, resulting in 30 individuals being offered employment. Last quarter, South Bay One Stop Centers were successfully able to enroll 3 El Segundo residents, both in the adult and dislocated worker program. The One Stop Center and Career Centers exited a total of 2 El Segundo residents with employment during that quarter. 3 youths from the City of El Segundo were enrolled in the WIOA year-round youth program. Through the South Bay WIB, the Career Pathways program, in conjunction with the Walsh Shea Corridor constructors, 20 El Segundo High School students studying the principles of engineering toured the Martin Luther King Metro Station, which is a section of the Metro Crenshaw LAX Transit project. And during the tour, they were provided with safety briefing and learned how how a tunnel is bored and to make room for the light rail. And in the fourth quarter, the totals reflected were over 108,918 visits of the South Bay One Stop Center and Career Center. So these are here for our residents, our citizens, to go get help, to be retrained, to learn something, to be taught. Even if you come out of jail, this is a one-stop center. They have programs for that for you. The rapid response services were provided in 26 South Bay companies that employed 1,821 individuals who were affected by layoff closures in the fourth quarter, including Boeing and Cozy Mills Restaurant and the Quick Start Intelligence and the baby stores located in the City of El Segundo. So we're trying to find people who work there. 24 Fit for Gold cadets, of whom were 2 from El Segundo, were honored during our May 17th Fit for Gold closing ceremony. And as part of the Summer Jobs Program, 2 El Segundo students are being recruited and will receive paid pre-employment training and up to 100 hours of paid work experience. And the youth have the opportunity to earn up to $1,440 this summer. So there's more about that, but I just wanted to highlight the El Segundo happenings here in this report. And now if I put on my chamber hat, I want to remind everybody about the car show this Saturday. On Friday, we had 199 people signed up, and today we have 250. So it was a crazy day, 4 days. And actually, I went to Big Bear this weekend and handed out over 200 flyers because it was a Big Bear car show. So we're trying to get interested bodies and people from all over Southern California. So hopefully we'll see everybody on Saturday at the car show. Thank you so much.
Evening, Madam Mayor, fellow council members, Ron Swanson. I'm a resident, but I'll say I'm from S&S Hardware, 1111 East Grand. Right, Don? Do that. Happy summer. Hope everybody's enjoyed it. God, I was watching the slides and I reflect back to double-digit interest when we used to be able to do that, and it was kind of shocking. You get nothing nowadays. You almost have to pay the banks, but I'm going to go back. I'm going to focus on business tonight. Let's look back about 5.5 years. 2 little words popped up, TopGolf. 5.5 years that we've been chewing on this development program. I'm surprised that it's still moving down the road. I'm surprised that the applicant and the developer still wants to do it, but they've hung in there. I'm not representing them. This is the art of the deal. So for the last 5 to 5.5 years, each and every sitting council member, including all 5 of you, Drew's not here, have gone to them with your hat in your hand, asking for a concession, an addition, a deletion, a modification, something to make the development better. Including, one of them was, Suzanne, you know that, the 3% tax on the alcohol sales. That was a good thing. But we've gone to them and we received it. It's time to move forward. I know you've got about a dozen or so bullet points left in the due diligence. I don't know how you get those done in a timely manner. If it takes an open council meeting, if you can do that and put everybody in the room, talk freely, as long as it's an open meeting. I'm not sure if that is legal, but I think it needs to be done. Get it done. Quit going every 2 weeks and going another month to month to month. We've got to move forward. It's remarkable that the misinformation that's out there, people don't understand it. I've been to a TopGolf facility. Councilman Braun, you've been to one. I think, Mike, you've been to one. I think, Suzanne, you actually went to one. Pretty nice facilities, and they do a little bit for everybody. And we're making sure that we can do a little bit for everybody here, including the youth programs. On that note, one of the bullet points that I saw was, I believe one of the sticking points is number of hours that the bays are available for programs. I think you can respond to this in your comments. I believe it's 468 hours that are required as a part of the lease agreement. That's no charge to the city. On the 468, or if that's the number, I'm not sure what it is. What number is it for the city programs that we have to do with the youth programs that the pros are going to run, or whoever's going to run them, versus are those hours included for the pros to do their private lessons? If some of those hours, say 50 or 60 of those hours for the private lessons, we shouldn't even be talking about that. That's a private enterprise negotiating with a private company to do their services or promote their businesses within that facility. Let's focus on what the City of El Segundo requires out of the agreement, not what another company needs for us to supply them as part of the agreement. That's just my personal opinion. But again, each and every council member that has sat on this council for the last 5 years had their hat in their hand, went to the developer, got something from them for the project, good, bad, or indifferent, and moved it forward. It's time. Let's don't get to 6 years. It's time to finish it up this year and maybe sometime in September. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, Nate Chittick, El Segundo business owner and very proud 13-year resident of this great town of ours. I'm very grateful for the work for all you guys do. I fully recognize it's a thankless job. I want to put a little different spin on what was just said, just a tweak maybe, try another angle. I was driving down the street passing Campus El Segundo a couple days ago, and I was very excited. As you guys know, we're revamping that field. There are a lot of kids that are going to benefit from that, and I want to thank you guys for the work that you guys did with D.R. Horton, right? And they've been what seems to be a very responsible business community partner of ours that was able to help us to make that happen. All right. I feel like, and I came here tonight to hear a presentation about TopGolf. I was here a number of years ago. I want to say it was 2, maybe 3 years ago, where we had an independent study done to determine the fiscal happenings or the fiscal ramifications of having TopGolf come in. First of all, we found that we're losing money every year. That's a fact. That's not something that's we can debate or have an opinion on, but that's actually a fact that we're losing money at the lakes every year. Number 2, 85% of customers of the lakes are not from El Segundo. 2 big things that kind of stuck out as me. I came here very open-minded, wanted to hear their presentation. I thought I was going to hear that here tonight. The third fact that came out was the projected revenue, and the number jumped out at me. It was a large 6-figure number. It's my understanding we're negotiating, I want to say, a $525,000 land lease, and then there's so much of this that I don't know as a private citizen, so forgive me. I just feel like and I hear that we go to TopGolf and TopGolf comes back and there are positive negotiations that are happening, right? That they're saying yes to a lot of the things that we're asking for. I don't understand how we're going to fix the Lakes Golf Course as it is. I'm trying to see both sides of this. I love the fact that we're protecting our golf pros. That's something that we need in this community, is to care about people that serve us, especially our kids. As I understand, they do a fantastic job. And it sounds like we found a win-win where they can exist and we can be fiscally responsible. That sounds like good work on your part. I want to say we're almost there. Let's be excited about this, right? And as I understand, we beat them up a little bit, got a little more of the revenue. Great. But how long are they going to hang around? How long are they going to hang around to do this deal for us? And I get we want to preserve El Segundo the way it is. All right? I love that. That's what makes this city a great city, is that we have a culture. We have people that we care about. We have a way of doing things. I don't want to get in the way of that. It sounds like you guys have done good work so far to get us to a place where we can win on both levels. We're about, as I understand, El Segundo, we are pro-business. We are less taxes. We are less regulation. We hang our hat on that. Let's continue to do that. Let's be supportive. Let's get another D.R. Horton win for our community. That's what it takes. So let's flip the script. Let's get fired up. We're close to the goal line. Let's put the ball over the goal line. All right, Mike's from Illinois, big football fan. He gets that. Good job. You beat them up. We got them. They're here. They've done everything we've asked them to do. Let's finish this thing and let's have a win. Let's drive some revenue. All right, we need revenue. Part of being fiscally responsible, part of being supply side economics is also enjoying the revenue when it comes in. When you cut regulation, you bring in new business, you get to enjoy the revenue. Let's not forget that part. I appreciate you. Thank you for letting me speak. I love this city. I know you guys have a thankless job. Hey, let's get positive and win this thing. God bless.
Dave Atkinson, 40-year-plus resident, El Segundo. Basically, just to clarify for Ron and Chuck, or Nate, rather, the lease is basically $525. You get 2% a year for 5 years, then you get 10% every 5 years after that. They're going to have 450 employees full-time with benefits. They're going to increase it from 56 bays to 102 bays. They've just come back with a lot of things to help out the kids program, which I'll be honest, at first I didn't think was that important. I've since learned that it is, and I'm happy to say I'm behind it and have been on the meetings we've had on TopGolf. But I agree with both of you, there's no reason to any longer go and do this any other way except approve it. And I don't see why we'd even have to have a second reading. I mean, what else is there to say? We're looking at breaking even at best, or losing $200,000 a year, or making anywhere from $700,000 to $800,000 and then $1 million after the third year. So when you're talking employees, and they've also offered employees jobs to some of the people working here, it's up to them to accept or not. I, as you know, have been behind this program since day one. I just don't understand what else is going on. I know they flew out here to verify and do all the last things we asked for. All the rest of the stuff we asked for, they've done. I gotta be honest, I probably would have booked it and went next door and, say, to Hawthorne or somewhere. So anyway, I certainly hope that you don't put this off any longer. You don't really need the second reading, and certainly don't delay it. And it should be 5 yeses. Thanks for your time.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Joyce Genius. I'm living here in El Segundo, and I relocated out of Hermosa Beach to here was over a year ago, 1.5 years ago. Yeah, my excitement was very nice. My roommate was very nice, and yeah, I was here and thought, okay, perfect. So then happens something again and happens something again, and I wonder why. So, now I explain what is. You put an oversized vehicle permit in. I had last time spoken here in front of the city that I got a lot of incidents disregarding my motorhomes, what I have. And I'm very excited to tell you what's happened before, where I was relocating. I was in a toxic area, toxic people. I was first very happy, and then I realized that my friends are not my friends. And probably my one friend of mine, what was the daughter of a pork clerk, yeah, started acting out. She taking drugs and so stuff. And I don't want to be with her, and I told her, no, I don't want to. But the court clerk was my former ex-roommate. So I had a little bit more difficult time. So no, I have to accommodate this and have to do this whole thing in a normal, in regular manner. I tried to get help. I asked someone, she was nice. Yeah, you can get a job, everything. I didn't realize that's my ex-roommate. Yeah, was the court clerk. Called all the times in. So by my works, and I thought, oh, no, yeah, okay, all fine, every time friendship, you know how it works. So, and then probably she acted more out. By the city, put an oversized physical permit in. Nice, right? So she thought this maybe get rid of her is the best thing. So there was another guy. He was also very nice. He started very nice acting out. He was jealous, NSC, and when I have my motorhome, he asked me all the time, so how you get your motorhome? I paid it. I worked hard for it. He lied in front of the court. He lied everywhere. So, and now you're telling me what I should do. So I relocated last to the end after everything banked up and everything was like, I want to fight it, couldn't fight it. But then I come here, get probably broken in my motorhome, was the police. Oh, what should happen? Strange caller, right? Nah. Neighborhood. Good, right? You cannot have you arrested, nothing. Then last time, in a hotel, got a sign on it. Your numbers exactly match with the signature, everything. So, you cannot evidence it, right? So, and then she calls the police. Again. So, a neighbor out of Hermosa Beach called here in to make trouble, using like the police. I would like to have follow thing, would like to have a re-education of the police officer. And that's just the main thing. I have here very enough done. Broken in, nails under my tires. Then in the hotel where I have was the police officer going and tells him, yeah, the person lives there. I live by the Illinois Street. And I go every time over and they're saying, hey, the police was again here. And I said, what? Okay, so. And then I asked to speak with the city manager. He refused to speak with me. I have done an appointment and he refused to speak with me. I'm a citizen. I'm not a permanent resident. I have the right to speak with you over this matter. But that's a misabuse and a misconduct of your officers. And I do not like this. I would like that they try maybe to get relocated or
Your time is up.
located. Sure. Re-educate the police officers.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Ryan Crespi, resident of El Segundo. Won't take up too much time, just wanted to reiterate some things brought up tonight, and I was here a few weeks back, a month ago, when the review and the other public hearing about TopGolf was here. Just want to throw that big number out that I heard a couple weeks ago. It's $5 million that's owed to El Segundo from the lakes, and really no foreseeable path of how it's going to be paid back. And from whatever the reviews, the independent reviews, and the surveyors that came and spoke, they said when TopGolf comes, I mean, it'll get paid back. The city will see that $5 million. The other people that were up here recognize that. You know, they all gave it a 5-0 yes. You know, I just hope you guys do the same. And then the other, just want to reiterate what the other gentleman said about 85% of the people that go to the lakes is outside of El Segundo. When I was here a few weeks back, everyone that came up and spoke that was kind of against it, they were not residents of El Segundo. They said they were from Torrance, they were from Manhattan Beach, they were from Redondo Beach, but every person that came up here, every resident of El Segundo was in favor of it. So remember, the people of El Segundo that put you in these public positions are with you guys and want this for our town. So thank you.
See no more public communications. We'll close. Council comments? I just want to thank Elise for her report on the South Bay Workforce Investment Board. It's a tremendous resource for our residents who are here. And if anybody is looking for training or a job, I encourage them to get in touch with Chris Cagle. He's our representative, or Elise. Thank you. Procedural motions, consideration of a motion to read all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0. Special orders of business, unfinished business. Consideration and possible action regarding approval of environmental assessment number EA 1161 and adoption of an ordinance zone text amendment number ZTA 16-05 to amend various sections of the El Segundo Municipal Code, Title 15 zoning, making numerous corrections and general edits, cleanup, adopting this ordinance as statutory exempt from further environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act and CEQA guidelines. because it consists only of minor revisions and clarifications to existing zoning regulations and relating procedures. Applicant, City of El Segundo, fiscal impact none. City Manager?
Our city attorney is going to explain the voting process to the council.
Yes, Mayor and Council, when this was first brought to you, I think about 6 weeks ago, or it was on July 5th, there were and are numerous conflicts with regard to the council members and the ordinance, and so staff has taken and broken what was one ordinance into 4 ordinances for purposes of making the voting less complicated and easier to understand. So the ordinance was already introduced, and so what I was going to do is walk the council through the second reading and adoption of each of the ordinances. Council has substantive questions about the ordinances, then those would go to the planning department staff. But starting with ordinance number 1551, none of the council members have conflicts on this ordinance. It deals with zoning code definitions, the corporate office zone, urban mixed use north zone, urban mixed use south zone, and the manufacturing zone. Unless there are any questions about the substance of the ordinance, I'll just read the ordinance for adoption.
Any questions?
No.
See none?
Ordinance number 1551, an ordinance amending various sections of El Segundo Municipal Code, Title 15, ready for adoption.
Motion to adopt?
I'll make a motion to adopt.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 4-0.
Okay, ordinance number 1552, which deals with various sections of the El Segundo Municipal Code. Daycare centers, video arcades, clarifies and simplifies text relating to outdoor dining, adds animal hospitals, daycare centers, fitness centers, and various other changes. Councilmember Boyles had a conflict with regard to the downtown commercial zone, the neighborhood commercial zone, and the small business zone, which is covered by this ordinance. It's ready for adoption, and so ordinance number 1552, an ordinance amending various sections of El Segundo Municipal Code, Title 15, is ready for adoption.
I'll move to adopt.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 4-0.
Ordinance 1553 deals with the R3 zone. Council members Persick and Boyles have conflicts with regard to this based upon the location of their residence, and so for the moment, Councilmember Persick would need to leave the dais. Don't go far because we need you back for the next one. Modifies the front yard setback requirements, clarifies open space requirements, and changes, allows the director to approve adjustments to open space dimensions and minimum landscaping. Ordinance number 1553.
Any questions?
An ordinance amending various sections of the El Segundo Municipal Code is ready for adoption unless there are questions.
Questions? No.
No, I'll move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, 3-0. Councilmember Perstuck can return.
Yes, and we need to draw straws on ordinance 1554 with, as Councilmember Perstuck, Dr. Brand, and the mayor have potential conflicts.
She can't. She
Does
don't
the
get a
clerk
straw,
have
she
the straw?
can't
You
win.
have the,
What's that? So what I've got
Is it a cage match to determine the winner stays or goes, or how's it work? How's this go?
We can do that. I've got 3 pieces of paper, and 2 of them have stars on them, and if you...
Have an issue here, so he's gonna pull out of a hat.
What is this about? Why is there a conflict?
Based upon, it's, all of you are within 500 feet of the R2 zone.
Yeah, probably everybody is, right?
Everybody except for,
Oh,
except
yeah.
for Councilmember
Yeah,
Durden.
you're out in the ocean there.
all right.
So
Like
I've
with
got,
Dave.
I have 3 pieces of paper, 2 of them have stars on them, so if you draw a piece of paper that has a star on it, you will participate, and if not, you'll have to leave the dais.
Just pull one out.
Very scientific.
Have a star.
Do you want to comment on the artwork of the star or not?
That mean I have to leave again?
No, you're here.
Oh, I have a star. Dr. Brand is going to. Leave for just a moment. Don't go far.
So ordinance number 1554, which deals with the R2 zone, it modifies front yard setbacks, deals with porches, patio covers, front yard setbacks, and encroachments. And the ordinance is number 1554, an ordinance amending various sections of the El Segundo Municipal Code. Title 15 is ready for adoption unless there are questions.
Any questions?
I'll move to adopt.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 3-0.
So that concludes item C1.
Thank you.
Item number 2, consideration and possible action related to a status update on items in the due diligence period of the ground lease agreement between CenterCal and the city with regard to the potential development of a TopGolf facility on the city's golf course, the Lakes. Additionally, to provide direction to staff with respect to potential amendments to the lease, including but not limited to golf and youth groups' use of the facility and other use of the facility by the city, the Chevron deed restriction, lighting at the golf course, and extension of the due diligence period. Fiscal impact none. City Manager?
Mayor, members of the council, this item was on your agenda at your August 1st meeting. At that time, staff provided a update on various items in the due diligence agreement and reported that some of them still needed to be resolved. Council directed staff to continue meeting and the golf course design subcommittee to continue meeting with CenterCal and TopGolf to resolve those issues. The attorneys for both the city and CenterCal have been speaking. Staff has met with CenterCal and TopGolf, and we have some status updates to report tonight. So the city attorney and our director of Recreation and Parks, Meredith Pettit, are going to provide an update to council.
And these issues all deal with the lease between the city and CenterCal, and there are some potential revisions that need to be made to the lease depending on the direction given by council. Council had requested a status update on the 14 conditions preceding or due diligence conditions at the last meeting. All of the status of those conditions is set forth in the staff report. I had not intended to go through all 14 of those, but rather was going to cover the ones that may require some amendment to the lease unless the council would like to proceed otherwise.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Starting with number 2, just so that it's item 2, which has to do with the final building plans for the golf course and the clubhouse, really. We are, in a moment, Meredith Pettit will show you the diagrams for both, but we are going to amend the lease to put the final approved golf course design and clubhouse design in the lease. The council had previously made approved some parameters, but since that time the subcommittee has further finalized the design, and so it's important to get that into the final lease. I just note that at this time. With regard to item 6, which deals with Chevron's approval of the use of the premises based upon its grant deed. We have had discussions with CenterCal at the last council meeting. We were directed to try and get, or the direction was by the second read to have the grant deed documents signed by Chevron and CenterCal before the second read. In discussing this with CenterCal, they don't believe that that's possible. So what we've compromised on is to have the actual language in a exhibit that they will sign. That is, so that we've reviewed and approved the language. It'll be in an exhibit. It won't be changed any further, and at that point it'll get signed by Chevron some point after the second read, but at least we'll have agreed on the language. Any questions about that?
Why can't it be signed before?
CenterCal just thinks it's going to take Chevron a little longer than the next month to get it executed. And so from the city's perspective, we want to know what it's going to say and have the finalized language. And so a way to make sure we have that is to attach it as an exhibit with the exact language, and then it will be up to CenterCal and Chevron to actually execute it.
I see Rod Spackman from Chevron here. Did you want to add anything, Mr. Spackman?
Hi, Mayor Fuentes, members of the council. I'll just add one thing to the comment. We might be able to get this done within a month or less, but I think some of the confusion here is the kind of the assumption that this is a simple exercise. And nothing could be further from the truth in practical terms. When, as much as everybody would like to think that, yeah, just there's a grant deed, there's executable elements in the grant deed and it can be changed. Frankly, it took us a long time to get CenterCal / TopGolf / at the time the third party. Remember, this has been going on since 2014. There were a host of different parties. There were potential signatories to an exercise. And every time we have received a new document, it has changes. Sometimes they're material, sometimes they're relatively immaterial. The most recent document, which frankly we prompted CenterCal to provide us, was a document where they've now asked for additional considerations for property because of a title search that they did, something that they hadn't previously contemplated would be required in the agreement. But now that there's been a slight modification to the scope of the project that includes some property that was otherwise deeded through other Chevron entities historical to the development of that property. We're now having to go back and do an assessment of the title search they did and some of the representations they've made as a result of that title search. Guess what? It's the real world. It's the same kind of due diligence that the city would expect if they were in terms of their agreement directly. So all we're trying to do as quickly and as efficiently as we can. In fact, there was an email on this subject with our council in Houston today, because we have received some documentation from TopGolf that hopefully allows us to quickly proceed. But that's the nature of the beast. And I think somehow people just assume that this, other than the fact that we have indicated, and we indicated at the Planning Commission meeting, that we have agreed in concept, or in practical terms, to the substance of the agreement, we keep being kind of, we see material requests added to the document each time we see it. So we have to go back and do our due diligence. And frankly, I'm not going to apologize for that. I think that's reasonable. I think it's appropriate. And it does complicate your expectations about getting a signed document as early as might otherwise you would reasonably like. But I just have to be very honest about it. That's the circumstance that we find ourselves in, and we got this document the other several weeks ago, and we don't. It isn't the only opportunity that in front of us. So in fairness, you can criticize us for that. Maybe we've got plenty of things that we're trying to work through, and this is one of them. So we're trying our best. We're keeping in close contact with the city through Greg and his staff, and we'll continue to do that over the next several weeks as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, the hope is that we can get the form of the document between Chevron and CenterCal agreed upon so that we can get that attached to the revised lease document. The next issue has to deal with the lighting, and staff is, and I'll let the city manager speak to this to some extent, the staff is recommending that the amount, or the lease calls for CenterCal to deposit $400,000 with the city for the construction of the lighting on the golf course. Staff is estimating it's going to cost more than that, and that staff would like to have CenterCal do the construction as part of its revamping of the golf course, if you will. And Greg, do you want to speak to that for a minute?
Yeah, the term called for TopGolf to provide the city with $400,000 to put towards the lighting for a certain period of time. The city has to execute on according to the agreement, we have to execute on that project within a given period of time. CenterCal is the party responsible for renovating our golf course, and they're going to be contracting and overseeing that work. Ideally, the lighting project and the renovation of the golf course and the construction of the clubhouse would occur at the same time, so that the course is closed for the shortest period of time. We believe that that's best performed by a single party. That we believe that there's also the potential, even though CenterCal does have to pay prevailing wage on city property, there is a potential that their bids may come in lower if they contract for the work than if the city did. So from a project management standpoint, from a disruption of the golf course standpoint, and from a financial standpoint, we think it's a better approach for CenterCal to include the lighting project in their scope of work. They have indicated that they may be willing to do that for us, but they're concerned about cost overruns. If the cost of the lighting project goes over $400,000, and we believe it will, we believe that it's probably closer to $500,000 or $600,000. CenterCal is concerned that if it goes over $400,000, that they not be responsible for that. But if we are able to enter into an indemnification agreement with them between the city and CenterCal, where the city would be responsible for anything above and beyond $400,000, they may consider including it in their scope of work and their project oversight. That wouldn't mean that the city wouldn't have a role. We would have an on-site project manager during the construction to oversee the work. So what's being contemplated right now is assigning the oversight of the lighting construction to CenterCal and indemnifying for any cost overruns above and beyond the $400,000. And just to finish on the structure of the additional $100,000 to $200,000 that we believe may be necessary in strategic planning, we did indicate to council that it was staff's recommendation that in next year's budget we allocate, if the project is approved, that we allocate $200,000 from a general fund source for this purpose. If we do need those funds to complete the lighting, then they could potentially be added to the golf course loan back to the general fund and paid back with the proceeds from the ground lease and the TopGolf revenues.
The staff is looking for direction from council on that issue.
Where did the $400,000 number get into this? If staff feels that the lighting is going to cost a third or so more than that, why did the previous council and staff agree to 400? Why didn't they put in 500 or 600?
Well, my recollection was that this was just negotiated, that it was not anticipated that it would cover the entire cost of the lights, but it was an additional give by CenterCal or TopGolf towards the cost. So I don't think it was ever anticipated it would cover the entire cost.
Mm.
And I'm sorry, to add to that, that's one of the reasons the money was going to go into an escrow account, and that it could be in that escrow account for a number of years, because it wasn't necessarily contemplated that the lights would go in at the same time in the construction of the golf course, because it might take the city longer to come up with the additional funds.
And then Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we do the lighting at the same time during the general construction, we feel that it will actually save money as well as get it done. But
that is correct.
And I don't think anything was ever negotiated. I think this was something that was offered as a part of an agreement going forward, and the number came as an offer. So I don't know that there was ever any kind of an assessment as to what the costs were going to be. I think somebody estimated somewhere, not in, I don't think it came out of the city. The $400,000 number never came out of the city, if I'm correct. And I don't think there was anything negotiated. I think, like I said, it was just part of an offer here, so.
I think we had a cost, though. I mean, we had an idea of how much lighting would cost, and it wasn't intended to cover it all.
My recollection is similar to Councilmember Dugan's, that this was what TopGolf was willing to provide or put into the deal.
Yeah, there was never an assessment.
From a
done.
dollar
I'm not aware of any
perspective.
assessment.
This
that was
was
ever
talked
done.
about in 2014 or 15.
Probably 2015.
Mm.
So the direction tonight is really to staff is, do you want to direct us to work with CenterCal to amend the agreement to make them responsible for the lighting, if they're willing to accept that responsibility as part of their scope of work, and for us to negotiate indemnification language into the agreement that would cover them on any cost overruns above and beyond $400,000?
I'm comfortable adding this scope of work to the CenterCal project. However, I think we ought to have a hold point on going forward until we know the overall total cost. I don't want to commit to something that has an open end to it here, so.
So do we want to put like a not to exceed?
Well, let's get the information out there first, right?
And do we have, we
Now,
don't-
hypothetically, if this goes to double the cost, then are we going to go forward with this is a question that I would have.
The other option for council to consider would be moving forward with a lighting project that costs $400,000, which means maybe the first 6 holes of the course as opposed to the last 3. That way people could still start at dusk, or is the other way around?
No,
The last 6 holes, I'm
other-
sorry.
yeah.
The last 6 holes
Later,
as
right.
opposed to all 9 holes. People could still start and finish in the dark with the lights on the last part of the course.
And how soon, what do we need to find out how much it will cost? Like, we have the design of the course. We know what's out there.
We have tried to jumpstart things somewhat by getting a lighting designer under contract. We obviously want to wait until we have a decision from council to actually put that person to work designing, spending dollars to design plans, and then put those plans out to bid. The designer could probably give us a ballpark number, but it's not going to be an official number until it goes out to bid.
So I wanted to add something. I missed the last meeting, and I watched it over the weekend. And I want to clarify some things that were said. There were issues brought up about 2 golf pros who were going to be working for TopGolf. And as everybody knows, this started so long ago. Dr. Brand was on council at the very beginning, right? And as I said, any child who was born when this began is starting first grade this month. It's been that long. At that time, the face of TopGolf was a man named Randy Starr. And I met with him on many occasions, and I know that he was very impressed by the youth program we have at the lakes called Good Swings Happen. And I know he talked to them, and he talked to the lakes, and he saw the revenue that was produced, and it was unlike anything that TopGolf have. They do have TopGolf University and a summer academy, but they didn't have anything that was like Good Swings Happen. And they didn't want Good Swings Happen, and it's run by Josh Albers, to go to another golf course forever. I mean, he knew that some of these pros would have to take their clients and go somewhere else, but they wanted Good Swings Happen to remain at the lakes and at TopGolf because, again, it's unlike anything they have in their enterprise. And it was TopGolf who reached out to Josh and it sounds like somebody else and made an offer to them of staying on as a consultant during that time so that they wouldn't lose them to another golf course. Again, this is I don't golf and I don't have anybody in the program, but from everything I understand, fantastic program. So I heard some things that were incorrect at the last meeting about are they only doing 2 out of 10 golf pros, or how did this come about? This was instigated by TopGolf. And then when Randy was replaced by somebody whose name I don't remember, but he became the new face of TopGolf, he came to a meeting and he sat right in front of where Dave Atkinson is sitting, and I asked then if that was still their commitment, and they said yes, that was their commitment. So I'm a little concerned that their commitment now, from what I understand, is going away. Because they are the ones who instigated this. They reached out, they made the agreement, so that's how that came about.
And we're going to cover that issue as part of this discussion tonight. On the lighting issue, we could put in language that TopGolf will bid it out, and if the city approves the amount, whatever that might be, then they can proceed, but we would come back to council with that number. As the city manager said, we won't know the number till the bids come in.
Well, I know construction costs rise, but I also know with technology, as technology improves, those costs go down of the equipment. So I still think that we were given a range once. Dave, do you remember any kind of lighting cost?
When I first went in, should I go?
Sure, thank you. And maybe this precedes you. No, Mike.
When the agreement first started, the lights wasn't even involved. And then the councils got, not the council so much, as well as the committees got together and requested, since they're going to have probably a heck of a lot more business at night than we do today, why not add lights? And if there's an hour wait at the hitting range, why not play around the golf? So that way the city would have another impact on revenue coming in, and people that were waiting to hit golf balls may actually learn, say, hey, you know what? Actually playing golf's pretty much fun. So at the time, we contacted TopGolf and talked with Randy and a couple of other people, and they basically came up with a number. And that number at the time was $380,000, so they said 400. Since then, I tend to agree with you, Greg. I think it's going to be a little over 5. I don't see it more than that. I've actually went online, not that I'm really good at doing that. But my thought pattern is if they're doing the 400, and we should get a bid on the whole thing, and whatever that number is, we should cap it as a city. If we've set aside in strategic planning 200,000, that would be our cap, and go back in this case either to TopGolf or CenterCal or both. And if it goes over that with their approval, then they would do the rest of it, so that we all have basically a contract. Okay, it's going to get done all at once, because if we do 6 holes, we're never going to do the other 3. I mean, that's my opinion. It's going to be 3 times the cost of doing the digging, finding all the, I mean, Mike's an engineer. He knows the costs are basically when you first get in there.
So I was just
Come
asking.
on, we got more than one engineer.
Yeah,
Good.
thank you.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I've only been on him the golf course, so.
But, so I was just asking if you remembered a price estimate, and I sort of remember an estimate at the time.
Yeah, it was between 375, 400. So we come up with 400, and they granted it to us.
So at one time, we did have something of an estimate.
Yeah, we
so-
did.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So do you need us to make a motion? Is that what you're looking for?
Or direction from the majority of you, yes.
I mean, I believe we should move forward with directing the city to go into an agreement with CenterCal on the 400,000, and we can put a cap on it, and then relook at it once we have the final bids. But I do feel it's important that we we go forward with the construction at the same time as the regular construction. Otherwise, the cost will definitely escalate.
I'm good with that.
So we're adding, I said earlier, I'm okay with adding it to the scope, and if there's extra funding involved, I want to know what that is before I approve it. That's my only hang-up.
Yeah.
That's,
Okay.
I'm willing to move forward with that, so.
Okay.
Is that good enough?
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
And we can act quickly on that if we need to. We can have a
Okay.
special meeting so we don't hold anything up if that's what it takes to.
Staff report contains the hours that the driving range professionals and the youth groups will be able to use the facility. It has a provision that if there's, and maybe just for the audience purposes, I'll say what those are. It's 10 hitting, on Monday through Thursday, it's 10 hitting bays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and 4 hitting bays from 4 to 7 p.m. On Friday, it's 6 hitting bays from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 3 hitting bays from 2 to 6 p.m. Saturday and Sunday, 4 hitting bays from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 3 hitting bays from 12 to 4 p.m. The staff report said that if there were there was additional usage outside of those time periods, it would be a reserved rate of 50% of the hourly rate. Actually, just to clarify, if there's additional hitting bays within those time periods, it'll be at 50% of the hourly rate. If it's outside of those times, it'll be the TopGolf rate less a $10 an hour discount, just to clarify. That's, as I understand it, was negotiated by the subcommittee. And that's the recommendation for, initially the TopGolf was going to run the youth group and professional, the golf pro professional programs, but the city is now, the subcommittee is recommending that the city take that on, and that these would be the agreed upon hours that the course would be available for operation. Council okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
This asterisk, then, it's not correct.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's, say again what it is.
Additional hours within the hours listed are at 50% of the hourly rate. If there are hours of additional usage outside of those hours, it's TopGolf rate less $10 an hour.
Yeah, okay.
I thought I saw Mark here.
Who?
Oh, he's right here from TopGolf.
Didn't we agree to?
No, that's what they had offered. If the expansion, if we needed bays during these times that we've already identified, we get 50% off. And then anything that was never identified, a time frame that was never identified, was just $10 off.
That's it. Okay.
And that was the golf committee's.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, and we met, and we can have Mark Foster is here from TopGolf. We met and we had quite a bit of dialogue about the needs of the city and to support the programs. And this is, TopGolf was very generous to expand to our request. I mean, right, Meredith, we feel that these hours comply with what we need.
Mike?
Yeah, there was a committee meeting, and then we followed up with a separate meeting afterwards. So it wasn't all in committee, but there was a committee meeting that established that these were the hours that were deemed, considering what's going on today, this is what it would take to maintain the existing programs. And everybody was in agreement, the committee was in agreement with that, and TopGolf has agreed to those terms, so, yes.
That's two.
So we're down to the asterisk. We're not past that in this talk, right? We're just dealing with the asterisk and above.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. I'm good with that. Sounds like the golf committee worked through the details.
Correct.
Devil's in the details.
As part of that, the golf course subcommittee is also recommending some language in the agreement that would provide on some sort of regular basis, I don't know if it's annually or biannually, that the TopGolf and the subcommittee would get together and review how the programs are working and determine if there should be some changes to the programs. Doesn't committee decide to do anything but other than to get together and discuss and explore potential changes. The next issue deals with the one the mayor raised, and that is about the paying the two golf professionals during the construction period of the facility. And CenterCal and TopGolf are requesting elimination of the requirement to pay the two golf professionals during that time period. And we need direction on that.
So during that time period, the two golf professionals, they'd have to find work elsewhere.
Correct.
Right? It wouldn't be the city's problem or CenterCal or TopGolf's problem. They could maybe go work at another golf course for Donovan or whoever manages the course. That's what this is saying?
Correct.
Well, it was never CenterCal. It was TopGolf's commitment
Okay.
to retaining the two because of the Good Swings Happen program. And again, that was instigated by TopGolf, reaching out to the pros. So not wanting to lose that. If it goes somewhere else and is as wildly popular as it is here, then we run the risk of that not ever coming back here. And TopGolf was trying to avoid that. So I'm concerned that they're not holding to their end of the bargain, which they instigated and confirmed when we had the person who took Randy Starr's position.
So a couple months ago, I met with TopGolf around some security issues, which will be coming up in a couple paragraphs. And they had just come from a meeting, I think, of the golf course subcommittee, where they made an announcement that they were not going to be offering lessons, that they were shifting that to the local pros. Probably increase the business of the local pros because they're going to make referrals to them. But at the same time, in so doing, that's when they, this last sentence here in the paragraph talks about, given that, we're not going to pay them during the construction time. They're cut free, right? So
Right.
that changed that too.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, that was.
And I know that there was some dialogue between the pros and TopGolf, but that's separate from the city's responsibility on what they, as far as employment, that's up to TopGolf and the pros to have that dialogue.
So summer's a really busy time of all this action for the camps and lessons, especially involving youth. If we don't get this transaction moved along, we're going to lose the summer of
Correct.
18.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
You know how construction goes.
Right, that's why it's important that, that's one of the reasons why we pushed it back as well, is that we didn't want to close the golf course until after the summer
Right.
ended. So now that we've done that, and now there's these extra delays, we may impact FY18 if we don't move fast.
And the plan here, the timeline, is the council's going to have first reading on September 5 and second reading on October 3. Is that correct? When we all expect to be here?
That's, the mayor has requested the potential second read be on October 3rd, as she is not going to be available at the second meeting in September.
So then on October 3rd, if it gets out of here alive, if it goes forward, then what has to happen?
Well, at that point in time, 30 days has to go by, and just a comment had been made earlier by former Councilmember Atkinson that we could just skip the second read. Legally, we can't skip the second read. It has to occur. The ordinance takes effect 30 days after the second read. During that time period, there are some additional, the Chevron document would need to be executed. There are guarantees by two different separate entities, one a CenterCal entity and a TopGolf entity, that have to be executed. Those guarantees are for purposes of ensuring that once the golf course gets torn apart, it gets put back together in some form. And also, as you could see from the 14 conditions, there are some documents that are still being negotiated, although I think most of those will be wrapped up by then. So I think the big issues will probably be getting the guarantees executed and getting the Chevron portion of this done.
So now we're up to November 2, after the 30-day waiting period, right?
Correct.
Doing the math, okay. So
Zach, how will that impact the summer of FY18 if we push it back to the second reading?
Well, you're potentially losing 15 days. Now, how quickly things will get done after that, as far as the Chevron documents and the other things that CenterCal has to do, I can't answer that. What we've put in the staff report is this current lease due diligence period is going to expire on September 30th. And we recommended pushing that till the end of December, just to make sure that, well, so that we wouldn't potentially have to come back to the council and ask for another extension. But there's nothing saying that TopGolf and CenterCal couldn't have documents ready to go and be ready sometime early in November to start moving forward. It's just an outside deadline. It's not saying they couldn't move forward faster.
We have CenterCal in the room here.
Yeah.
He can give us some better schedule numbers, I think. Steve?
Good evening, Council. Steve Shaw with CenterCal. As was said earlier, we're on the goal line and ready to go. We've already submitted plans. We've gotten plan check comments back on the golf course side and the pro shop side. TopGolf's gotten comments back. City staff has been great in terms of the building department and planning department. So our intention is get approval in September, and the next day we're pulling a demo permit, we're going. Otherwise, we will impact with the construction schedule. You'll start getting into the rain months. It's 10 months for TopGolf to build out, up to 6 for us to do what we have to do. So it's really pushing it. And again, we want to preserve that summer, and we know that's a precious time period. And like I said earlier, we're ready to go. Let's get Chevron in a room with us, and let's just bang it out. Simply put, thank you.
So the estimated time to do the construction is 6 months? We lose the course for 6 months?
Correct.
From when we start. So if we get started on this a little before Thanksgiving, then everybody's out of business for the next 6 months. And that's if everything goes well, right? Okay? Yeah, it's going to be tight.
So do we have to move the second reading?
It's a council decision.
So we have to decide if we want to move the second reading or keep it to the original date.
Well, we waited about 5.5 years here now. It's been all of Mike's term and most of Suzanne's, and I think everybody deserves a chance to be here to vote on this. So I support the mayor in her request to defer this because of a long-standing planned trip. And we just need to respect that, especially given her amazing record for attendance here over the last 7 years. So we're doing it, the only way we can do it faster is if we did a special on it. Might get it, a few days faster? Not sure when you're returning, but
ordinances can only be adopted at regular meetings.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Stuck on that then.
So we're stuck on that.
You just have to wheel everybody in here on those dates.
Yes.
So
Get everybody.
there's no excuses for not being here.
I don't think on the golf pro issue I don't think that got resolved.
Okay.
So my only thought is that, if we were to take down or remodel the clubhouse, we wouldn't be offering employment to all those teachers while that clubhouse was being constructed. So the golf pros are not our employees today. They're correct?
Correct. They are.
So I have a hard time having discussions about it, because we wouldn't be finding placement for the clubhouse employees if we tore that down. So we shouldn't be having different conversations. We shouldn't be having different compensations for just for the golf course people.
So and I understand this. This was in the lease going back, I think, 2 councils ago, and staff's not taking a position on it. We're just looking for direction as to whether it comes out of the lease or not.
And again, this was instigated by TopGolf. They committed to it because there is a benefit to them. And I don't think there was ever a plan that somebody would be paid for not doing work. They're consultants. TopGolf has other things. And again, I don't even know if they want to do it. The first time I heard this was the meeting that I missed, but that was TopGolf's commitment and part of the agreement.
Did you want to, Mark, did you want to speak to this?
So obviously I wasn't around during that when those conversations were happening.
Yes, just to identify, this is Mark Foster from TopGolf, everyone.
Mark
Sorry.
Foster, TopGolf. So I wasn't in front of you when those agreements were made. I know that our position is they are a third party. We don't know what will happen if we do compensate them. They are independent contractors. They are allowed to go to surrounding courses, continue their business. I don't think anyone has rights to good swings. I think that's, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a program that the pros have established for themselves, and Parks and Rec benefits from that. There's no guarantee either that just by compensating them during those downturns that they will return and bring that program back with them as well. So our concern is just really they're independent contractors. They're not employed by us. We have grown as a company over the 5 years. We do offer now our own TopGolf U program, kids camp program, etc. We have agreed to drop that program here, even though that program has a lot of brand recognition to it at all of our other venues. It was spoken to earlier that we are no longer offering that program, which I think is a big effort on our part to allow Good Swing Happens to continue. So our position right now would be we would like to not be required to compensate those pros during that off time, just because of their position as independent contractors and their ability to go elsewhere to work.
Okay, but they always had that ability.
Correct. They always had that
was,
ability.
and TopGolf knew that when TopGolf reached out to them.
Right.
Again, I don't remember the person who replaced Randy. Drew?
I don't know who that individual was who spoke to you. So the other way that we also, I want to let everyone else know, we did offer full-time positions to some people and we didn't receive any feedback back. And I believe in the lease and some agreement says that if the pros are employed by TopGolf, we would then compensate them for their downtime because they're considered employees of TopGolf, and then they would be working inside our facility. We obviously have said we're not going to we're not going to employ TopGolf professionals at all of our venues across the nation. We employ, and those pros are actually salary employees by TopGolf. That's not the case here. We were able to offer a salary to some people, and they did not accept it.
So you're making an exception here at this installation, different from what's happening at other TopGolf facilities?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right, but keep in mind that this is, I don't know if you've added any other, but to my knowledge, there was only one other TopGolf that was adjacent to a municipal golf course.
Correct.
So.
You're correct. And I think Meredith can speak to some other items that we're doing here to accommodate the Parks and Rec program, accommodate the growth of the sport here as well. But yes, you're correct.
So if these professionals who are independent contractors make it through this, let's say, 6-month winter, then at the end of all that, will they come back as independent contractors, or will they become employees of the City of El Segundo? How's that supposed to work through?
So the way that the committee and the department have been discussing this was that the city would be responsible for allocating the space that's being given to us by TopGolf free of charge or for a nominal fee. So the numbers that you see before you, as far as the hitting bays and the times of days, the city or the department through the golf management company most likely will be responsible for allocating programs and instruction hours using those hours at TopGolf. Currently, we have our golf management company contracting with individual golf pros. That's most likely going to be similar in the future.
So they'd remain as outside contractors.
Right.
But could have a larger clientele because TopGolf is going to refer all lessons to these types of people.
It's possible. I think also currently they pay a monthly rent regardless of the amount of usage at the facility. So if this project is approved, we would go back to the drawing board and really evaluate what's the best way to contract with these independent contractors as far as monthly rate or some other sort of revenue share.
Right, and that's not the only revenue the city gets is their monthly rate, correct? I mean, they get buckets of balls and they get fees from programming and.
Correct. You mean the golf course fund?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So it's the monthly rate from the contractors. And the summer camps are actually registered through the golf course as well. So revenue from the summer camps goes directly to the golf course fund.
Yeah. I think that looking at this in total, this was something that was initiated by TopGolf, and I go back to, the memory cells in the brain here from back 4 and 5 years or whatever, but there were a lot of things that were said and promised, and the day of reckoning is coming. Are we going to adhere to all the promises? And there's things about the golf course design, and there was some contention about losing par 4s on the golf course, and you'll see that we actually are going to lose a par 4 on the golf course, and you'll see that the yardage isn't what it was going to be, and that has to be that way for safety reasons and golf course design. So there's some trade-offs going in here, but to me, I think we have, we're trying to partner forward with this and maintain integrity of, standing by our commitments and making things happen. So I'd be interested in seeing if there was a way to find a link to keep the golf pros connected here, because I think and I'm speculating on this one, I think what the intent was that the golf pros that have these programs actually have the clientele, and they've actually built that clientele up, and if they leave and go somewhere else for a 6-month window, will they come back is a question, and we all hope that they do, but I think the intent of this was to make sure that they knew that they'd have a place to come back to and to keep them, and I can't speak to that, but I think that was the intent, was to make sure that there was a commitment going forward and a place for the people there. So, I would like to see us honor all of our commitments, and then when we're unable to do it, we ought to be able to talk about compromising and how we've been compromising on these issues and things. So, we either do what we say we're going to do, and if we don't, we give a logistical reason for it, and everybody can agree to a reasoning. And I think if I put it in simplified terms, if we didn't have a Topgolf facility going in, we wouldn't be closing the place down. We wouldn't be offsetting any programs there or closing them down. So regardless of who they're employed with in the future here, I think there's kind of a moral obligation to maintain our commitments to maintain those programs and connect them somehow. I don't know what, there was never any terms about what that would look like or anything else. I have no idea what that would look like, but I would like to be able to honor our commitments to meeting all the things that I'm going to say were promised in the early part of this. That's an important deal going forward. So that's what I'm looking for.
So the only thing is that agreement, whatever it was, had some holes in it because they're not our employees to have to retain. In addition to that, there's 9 pros and it only calls for 2. So who's going to pick the 2?
Well, as I explained, they were chosen by TopGolf.
But
One was
TopGolf-
because of good swings happen.
Yeah, but that's kind of odd that you would only protect 2 of the 9. So I'm just that agreement
That
just
was
seemed
their decision, and again, they instigated it, and
Those are largely
tied to good
people that
swings happen.
conduct the programs are the 2 that were mentioned.
I mean, and Meredith, correct me if I'm wrong, we already have told Donovan that we're going to be going out to RFP on the management of the golf course for future management once it comes back online.
They know that that's highly likely, yes.
Okay. So we don't even know who the management company potentially will be because we have to wait for the RFP to come back. So it would be hard for us to have Donovan, agree to retain these people. We don't know if may not be managing the golf course in the future.
Right, is why the agreement was between TopGolf and those 2 pros.
I'm listening.
I guess I have one question, is that I wasn't privy to those. So, and I don't know what the conversations were, but, and I can understand where that promise came from. But what is it to retain? I guess I just don't know if there's how do we retain those people back, right? They are independent contractors. They're smart people. They're going to go seek other business with their clients or without their clients. And by compensating during the downturn of 4 to 5 months, or maybe longer if this deal doesn't break ground before the winter and everyone knows what the weather does, that they're going to establish a clientele at another facility. And then at that time, TopGolf has compensated these individuals in good faith to return, and now those individuals don't return. And that's why we offered them a salaried position, and it wasn't accepted. So that's where we have a hard time with this and trying to figure out.
So the only thing I could think of, if you want to, is you bring, when we do go back live, you offer a sweetheart deal in the beginning to attract pros rather than try to retain.
Well,
You offered contracts to the 2 of the 9? Is that what you mean?
So it was shared with one individual, and that's who it was shared with. And then it wasn't ever acted on.
So they probably calculated that they're better off as independent contractors than working for TopGolf as an employee.
Yeah,
I'm curious why it wasn't accepted, or
Yeah, I don't have the answer to that.
again, I don't know what that agreement would look like, or what kind of compensation would be discussed in there, but I would expect there would be some way to have a commitment going forward and
So for
making
me,
an agreement.
But for me, like, we're having a conversation here over 2 employees for a 6-month period, where if we go live, as soon as we go live, we'll have 450 people employed at this facility. So I'm just kind of concerned that, we have to look at the overall benefit to the city, as well as we'll be turning a profit where we're currently losing money, and I'm not sure why we're belaboring over I have no disregard for anybody. It's just, but from a math standpoint, I just don't understand why we're putting so much time into 2 employees over a 6-month period where we can gain 450 jobs right out the bat and start turning a profit on this facility.
So if I can take a comment from Mr. Spackman earlier in the conversations about this is not a straightforward, simple thing like you're trying to make it out to be. This is a complex thing about who teaches, how programs are made. It isn't about the pros as much as it's about protecting the programs and the draw on the kids and the youth to come into play. So it's the spirit of protecting those programs that's trying to be done here. The mechanism for doing that is maintaining contact with the people who run those programs so they go forward. It isn't as black and white about putting money on the table for two pros. It's about maintaining the programs that we have.
But we've done due diligence to ensure that we have the space available. We have the bays available for them to do the PAMPs. We have created a very large chipping area, expanded chipping area and putting area for these programs to expand. So if we can't get somebody to, when we go live or go open up, to get someone to run those programs, if we, as a Parks and Recs, decide that we can't find somebody to manage those programs, and I hope it's the same people that are doing it today, we can always turn back to TopGolf and say, you know what? We can't seem to find a pro to do this. They have a program that's a turnkey, and we can implement it very quickly. So we can't hinge our decision on one person's decision to stay and run a program. I mean, we have to build this program so that when we're all gone, the program functions. And I think we shouldn't be making a decision on one person's decision to stay and wait out a 6-month period.
So I don't take it as making a decision on one person to stay. What Mike eloquently stated is this was the agreement and needs to be honored. And I know this will make money for the city and that we lose money on the golf course, but we lose money on everything in recreation and parks. Parks don't make a profit, the pool doesn't make a profit. It's one of the services that we provide.
But if we can make a profit, then we can put money in the bank so we don't get into this situation where we don't have money where we can't fix or remodel. I mean, at this point, the lakes is tattered. The golf club, the clubhouse is tattered. We do not have the money to fix that clubhouse. I'm not understanding why this is hinged upon a decision, like an agreement that was shaky at best at the time, on keeping one individual running a program, when we know that we have in the negotiation, in the terms, we've set the plans that the landscape is going to be staged for someone to run some very nice programs if we can attract a pro. And if we can't, we can turn to TopGolf to run those programs.
Okay, and to your point that the lakes is tired, and I don't believe there's anybody who would argue with that. You know, this was never really put out for a bid for a management company to see what they would propose to come in and redo the lakes or the clubhouse and the pro shop and the course and everything else, so.
You know, it's been running for years, and no one came and suggested it, so.
Well, actually, it's been suggested a lot.
Yeah, several times it was suggested.
Oh.
So. And I don't know if
starting
you
a discussion of the merits of TopGolf or not TopGolf, which will be part of the public hearing in September. So probably avoid that till that public hearing, and we can postpone this issue if you would like until next meeting.
We could.
It doesn't sound like you can get to 3 here tonight.
We'll make the decision on it.
We'll have to recall the wayward.
Is that going to delay this? Is that going to delay it any further?
We can just have some language bracketed and ready to either leave it in or take it out.
Can we request TopGolf to go talk to the golf professionals and see about some kind of an agreement that you could reach going forward to try and make that happen? I don't know what it would look like.
I don't either, but I agree, Mike.
Okay, so they do that, and we say that the pros ask for the moon. Are we expecting them to? I mean, there's fair and there's fair. You know, we had to be fair to our partner in TopGolf as well. So you can't just sit there and say, we'll come to some agreement. I mean, if I was one of the pros now, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to ask for the moon, because you seem to be waiting on that agreement, and
I would like to know that we've done everything we can to honor what was committed first on, and if they can sit down and across from the table from each other and agree to either agree to disagree or make some kind of a deal going forward, I'd like to know that before I.
So can you go have a conversation with the two, which we don't even know who they are? We don't have the names. They're not even named anywhere, correct?
We'll talk to TopGolf.
Okay.
Very, very simply.
Okay.
All we have to do is get in the room for 5 minutes, and I'm sure we'll be fine. Can I say something?
Yes, Josh. Yes, please, come forward. This is Josh Shelbers, and he's the director of Good Swings Happen. And I talked about you before you came to the meeting tonight.
Sorry, I was coaching a PGA Junior League match. I couldn't get here on time.
I hope you won.
We did win.
Congratulations.
I wouldn't have said that we played if we didn't. So I just in a couple of the responses, again, in the whole subject of compensation for the golf pros, way back when this hall had started, I went to a TopGolf facility, met with Randy Starr at the time, who was the contact for the whole project. He shared a lot about the facility, TopGolf, everything at that time 5 years ago, where they were at, where they envisioned things going. I shared a lot about what we do here at El Segundo and at the Park and Rec facility. And we connected and had intended to work together as best we could, not understanding how things were going to work out. Through that conversation, and I understand through conversations with you, he reached out to me via email and said very specifically, we love the program that you have. We love all the things that we do. We understand that the programs that are currently there are woven into the community as they are, And Josh, if Topgolf gets this thing, we would be in a position to understand that you're going to go through some whatever changes or moving your businesses or this or that. And there's a lot that goes into keeping a database alive in and amongst all this that goes. We'd be willing to do some sort of a make you whole type of a thing, understanding that this is going to be difficult for all of us. It was initiated by Topgolf. That was the conversation. Randy, that was very nice of you. Appreciate that. Look forward to that conversation if it ever happens. And that is the end of it. I have not been involved in any discussion past that in any way, shape, or form about it, merely waiting for, like all of us, whatever conclusions to come to. So that's the entire involvement from my end of it. It was brought to my attention through our discussions, and there has been zero since then. I have not commented on it or weighed in or asked for the moon or tried to triple pay myself and rob people blind. It is about, that's the discussion that we had, and it has been just left at that. So that is the end of that. As far as in discussing with Mr. Foster, and I did see a description of a professional employment opportunity for Topgolf. We didn't get as far into the numbers of what that would look like. At that time, I was talking with Meredith, and I know Meredith was talking about Topgolf, not knowing how the relationships were going to work. It was premature for me to make a decision about working for Topgolf or not, because we had no idea how the structure of all these things were going to work. And if I may be completely frank, I am a golf professional, proudly so. I teach golf. I teach children for a living. It's what I love to do, and I think it's extremely important work in our community. And that work involves playing the game of golf and teaching the game of golf on a golf course and in a practice facility. And the driving range at the lakes right now is an asset that we use to train, but it is not where the entire business and the growth of the game occurs. So the perspective and the choice to not want to be a Topgolf employee was not a bad thing about Topgolf or not wanting to work with Topgolf in any way, shape, or form. It was about wanting to be in a situation where we can teach the game of golf in its truest setting, because that's the appropriate place for our business to conduct itself purely. Okay, so you understand this isn't about anything on the negatives. It's about growing the game of golf for our next generation, and that needs to be done on a golf course. And quite frankly, the Lakes at El Segundo as a park and rec facility is the single greatest place in Southern California currently to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where are you going now, Mark?
I suggested I would draft language that would provide the council with both options, and at the next council meeting, you can make a decision then, hopefully.
Thank you. Okay.
Finally, my office has drafted language regarding the security concerns that were raised by Dr. Brand. The language, as pointed out in the staff report, basically provides that the CenterCal will provide on Friday and Saturday night 2 officers, and the chief of police has the authority to increase that number up to 4 if necessary, or decrease that number. Just depends on the circumstances and what happens out on the facility, and also the ability to potentially change the nights that the officers will be there. So that's the way it's drafted. We have sent that language over to CenterCal. My understanding is that CenterCal, we haven't received a response yet, but my understanding was that CenterCal was expecting that type of language.
And I want to confirm that these overtime hours are not personable hours, so the city's not taking on a burden of...
Correct. And we've, the agreement provides for CenterCal to pay the fully, when I say CenterCal, that could be Topgolf, our agreements with CenterCal, pay the fully burdened rate of those officers. And that's the end of the report, and I think I have the direction I need at this point.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to take a break. It's 8:54, and we are going to be back at 9 o'clock. Yes? Oh, do we need direction? Something? Oh, we love pictures.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
All right. The golf course, the aerial view, Topgolf, parking.
Right, so I just wanted to share with you the latest rendering of the final design. The subcommittee has approved this design, and since you've last seen it, the major changes are in this area here, which is the tee boxes of hole 5 and 8. But just to give you a little overview, if you can see it, this new scorecard rendering is overlaid on the current site. So right here is where the current clubhouse is. So you can see where the TopGolf facility sits on the property, and this is the major area that's impacted the necessary changes to the golf course design. And you can see the parking lot, obviously, here. This is the new clubhouse, which is adjacent to this lake right here. And this whole entire area around the clubhouse is our new short game and practice area. So we have a bunker, putting greens, and even a putting green over here by the new tee at hole number 1. So everything that you see here that looks drawn in rather than a photograph are the changes on the golf course. So it's mainly to the tee boxes and the greens. As Councilmember Dugan stated, our hole number 4 stays a par 4, and hole number 9, which was a par 4, or currently is a par 4, is reduced to a par 3, but it's considered to be a long par 3. So the difficulty remains the same, or even could be considered more difficult than a short par 4 hole. And like I said, the main difference since the last time that you've seen this design comes from this area over here. And the reasoning why we came to this conclusion is there was some underground piping, I believe it's coming from West Basin under here, that the original hole 5 tee design was up in this area, a separate tee box. But in order to avoid that underground utility, we've relocated the tee box into one large tee box, and this actually provides some flexibility to the distances in hole number 5 and hole number 8. So one day, hole number 5 might be shorter, and hole number 8 might be longer, and vice versa on another day. So it provides some flexibility and versatility to the course, that you won't be playing the same hole every time that you play the course. Up here shows the difference between the yardage of the existing course, which is 1,340 yards. And this proposed design puts it just over 1,200. And this was a point that the subcommittee really ironed out and came to this conclusion in order to keep this yardage over that 1,200 yard mark on the scorecard. So are there any questions on the current design?
The one thing to comment is that the position of the clubhouse actually improves the golf course as far as from a management, because now there can be eyes and ears on that first tee, which I have been told by numerous people that many people skip paying and just jump on the tee. So it actually allows us to manage and control it a little bit better, and it actually adds the additional putting green right behind the first tee. So if you're standing waiting to tee off, you have some flexibility to get stretched out and practice.
Right. This is basically, I think, as much yardage as we can squeeze into the space available for the 9 holes, as well as focus on this practice game priority that we know that is very important to the community. The clubhouse location, like you said, yes, the starter area will be on this side so that they can view the tee box at hole number 1. And this area adjacent to the lake is actually the outdoor wraparound patio where there'll be outdoor dining opportunity.
And you're going to walk this, you don't cart it, right? Just
Correct.
like now?
Right.
Yeah. Are you going to talk about the parking lot now with this up here, or do you have another slide on that?
No, I don't have another slide on the
Okay.
parking lot. Is there a question?
Well, that was an issue in Roseville when I went up there. This lot that I thought was just humongous at 4 o'clock on a Friday. turned out to be sold out about 7:30. And it really surprised me how many people came in there, buses coming in there, everything. And when the Roseville police showed up at 7, start their shift on Fridays and Saturday nights, I asked them what their issues were, and they said, well, one of them is a parking lot's inadequate, and a disadvantage of Roseville is also there's residential really close by the TopGolf facility. So there's some conflict there around noise issues, et cetera. We've got a site that's free of all of those kinds of issues. But on the parking, I think we were able to get 104 additional spaces from West Basin. Where is that on there?
All right. That would actually be off of this site plan a little bit. So it goes over here, will be the 100 spaces, and then also it sort of wraps around onto Hughes Way as well.
That's streets there now, so that parallels Pacific Coast Highway.
Correct. Right.
And will that be available all the time, or is it just get opened when necessary?
It will be open all the time.
Open all the time.
Right, and I think you'll see more of the site plan from a planning perspective at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only way to exit the facility and turn south on Sepulveda is to go down that road and get to the stoplight.
Right.
Okay.
I understand the Roseville site has several access points. My goddaughter's husband's a big fan of the Roseville site. So there's actually more parking on the residential streets and that they can draw from that we can't here.
Yeah, and they have like a run up there of about 3 roundabouts that you go through to get back to it. It's really quite a distance off the road, and a lot of investment there. It's future, there's going to be a church and a hotel on that property. The church owns the property. Now, there'll be spaces available for the golf course users that are just identified for them. So they don't show up, oh great, we got this new lighted course at night, but we can't use it because there's no place to park because TopGolf sucked up all the spaces. I want to be sure that doesn't happen.
But how do you do that?
One of the
Parking lot monitor?
There's a license agreement that's currently, it's in the, one of the due diligence conditions that there'll be, I believe it's 30 spaces that will be specifically marked for the golf course during the hours that it's open.
Mm-hmm.
There's 70 spaces that can be used by the golf course, but 30 of them that will be marked for the golf course during the hours of operation.
Somebody has to enforce that. Unless we put parking meters at every spot.
Yeah, and make more revenue.
Well, TopGolf has a security force. That's a part of their staff. It's fairly extensive, and if Roseville's any example, and a lot of it's deployed in the parking lots because they need security there like anyone would with that many visitors. Thank you.
Okay, and this gives you an idea of the clubhouse. As mentioned, the clubhouse plans have been through the planning department, and those are being finalized right now. But this gives you an idea of the look and the feel of the exterior as well as the interior floor plan. So this is your entryway into a lobby, gathering area, and to your right would be the kitchen and the dining area leading to the outdoor wraparound patio. Back here are the restrooms, and then on the other side of the clubhouse building is where these offices will be, as well as the reduced size pro shop and the starter desk with that window that we talked about looking out on hole number 1.
Now, Meredith, have we contemplated subleasing that restaurant space to a small, like a restaurant who wants to manage that, similar to, something like the Crab Shack, the Point, or another restaurant that's willing and wanting to rent that space and run the restaurant?
Yes, I think there's a number of options. I think once once we move forward with the project, I think the next step will be really to determine how we want to operate the golf course and the clubhouse. And
Because
we'll be back.
today, do we not run the restaurant at a negative?
That's correct, we do.
So for the city, might be the best thing to sublease that space out.
Right, and I've been contacted by interested parties.
Right, so if there aren't any questions, that concludes our presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it's 9:05. We're coming back at 9:10. We need our city clerk.
If you were writing book on that, you'd be okay.
Are back, and we have reports of committees, commissions, and boards. And the first is consideration and possible action to receive and file an annual report of the Recreation and Parks Commission. City Manager?
I believe we have representatives from both these boards here to tell the council what they've been working on and what their priorities are for the coming year.
Thank you very much, Mayor Fuentes and City Council members. I'm Rick Pierce. I'm a member of the Recreation and Parks Committee. I've been a resident of El Segundo for the better part of 10 years, although my attachments go back another 20 when I was first here in the Air Force. It's a pleasure that the other commission members asked me to come to speak to you today. You have our written report. Based upon the length of the meeting so far, I'll just skip through some very basic highlights here.
Take your time.
Our year in review, as you know, it's a very special year. It's the 100th centennial for the city, and the Recreation and Parks Department has been an integral part of that program. I can say without exception, the members of the commission are impressed with Meredith and her staff and the fantastic job they've been doing all year, and we still have 6 more months to go. We're looking forward to that. You're well aware that we have a very vibrant youth focus in the city with our youth sports organizations and with recreational programming just in general. Aricia and her staff do an outstanding job with that. You've seen the literally hundreds of programs that they accomplish through the course of the year. Of course, it's a total city commitment to get this done. We have many partners and sponsors in the community. I'm going to list off a few here just for a highlight. You can always count on Chevron, Bill Ruan, Road, Tel, Scott Nickel Realty, Three Musketeers, Harrow Publications, Rotary Club, Kiwanis Club, Women's Club, Blue Butterfly, Kumon, Birch Insurance, Sammy's Wood-Fired Pizza, and Los Angeles Defenders as key ones that we've seen, but there are many more who both play a formal and an informal role in delivering the programs that our city presents. Just kind of an overview of the highlight of where we've been the last year. Where are we going? We came up with a list of 6 priorities, starting with the Aquatic Center. As you well know, it was quite a job going through the process of getting that approved, working with Hawthorne and other elements. And the focus over the next year for the Parks and Recreation is to have a successful launch of that facility. So Meredith and staff are preparing for resources that they're going to require. I know that they have a proposal in front of you regarding how to staff that, and that they're working on that. And then they need to solidify joint use agreements. So I think that's the major activities you're going to see there. In parallel with that, the golf course operations, right? Depending on where we go in the next several weeks, we could be sitting on moving that operation out as well. And with a 10-month construction period, we could be looking at having the same thing of another facility opening up at the end of next summer or next fall. And Meredith and her staff will provide continuity for that, including figuring out how golf course operations will go. And as you guys all emphasized here today, what's the continuity for the programs that we have for our youth? So there's been thoughts on that. The task was, gave us a chance to sharpen our pencils a little bit. We sat back and thought and said, these are the big projects that keep coming and flowing and keep recurring in front of us. But what's out there and what needs to be looked at? And in the area of El Segundo TV, some of the recreation division, and the parks themselves, we looked at it and said, what is our strategy looking forward? What is that integrated look of what the steps will be? What's the focus for upcoming? So if I use the parks as an analogy, what are the parks that need a little bit of service and care? Places that might need an investment. Now we're coming through the replacement of the turf at Campus El Segundo, which you all know was a great project, and it's moving along now. But what's that next wave? We're going to try and sit down and figure that out. So we've established a goal to come up with the list of goals for those, to consolidate things that are bouncing around staff, aren't necessarily written down, get them written down, so that then we can provide them to you to show priorities as to where the next steps should be. The last aspect I'd like to touch on is community engagement and outreach. At times we go by, we don't get very many folks from the community come in, but recently we've had folks come in and give us suggestions about a project that they could do inside a recreation park. Some of the seniors came by and said, we'd like to have a paddleball type activity that's here. It was great to hear the community come in and do that. And we thought about it and said, maybe we need to turn the mirror around a little bit and look a little more outward. So we're going to try to figure out a way to work an outreach program to try and pull a little more from the community as opposed to waiting for it to come to us. And with that, I think that's the direction you're going to see. We look forward to any kind of, I look forward to any questions you may have. And so I'll stop there.
Thank you, Rick. Comments?
I just want to thank you for your time and your volunteerism and the rest of the committee or commission. But and I applaud you for looking at developing a strategic plan for our parks and mapping out where we want to go for the future, and so that we have a clear roadmap of which parks need to be identified and worked on, and a planned attack so that we can budget those accordingly. So thank you for doing that. I know it's a huge undertaking, and I know that there's some discussion about, also expanding some of our like developing parks, like the walkway along Imperial. So thank you for your efforts, and I think having a strategic roadmap of those of the maintenance and the upgrades of those parks will be great. So thank you.
Yeah, Rick, I too, I'm pleased. We started these off as let's have some quarterly reports out from the different commissions and committees that are working, and what you gave us was a quick look at what you've kind of accomplished, but I'm thrilled more to hear about what you're looking for in the future. I'm just excited to hear that, you're looking about what the future direction ought to be and how the staff maybe ought to be looking at some things, and then even looking for community outreach to see how we're doing that. So I just commend you guys and applaud you. Fantastic job. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'd like to just add, it's a good collaboration with the Rec and Parks Department. A couple of commissioners sat down and we talked about it with Meredith as where we wanted to go, what we thought we could do. And so we look at it as that's kind of our charter. Be the voice of the community and help you folks with the long-term planning.
Thank you. Really appreciate that.
Where are you with Frisbee golf? Is that under consideration?
Someone had come by a couple of meetings ago and had mentioned that they wanted to offer up giving a Frisbee goal for that, and then figuring out how to place that. I think Meredith and the staff took that under consideration to understand where that might fit in the larger scheme of things within the park. So we have not had feedback on that yet, but I am looking forward to understanding what that opportunity might be.
Was that proposed for the Imperial Parkland or for Recreation Park?
I think it was Washington. I think it was Washington originally, wasn't it?
Or anywhere.
Yeah, that's
We
why
just
I
have to be
recall
careful that
Frisbees
I was thinking
everywhere.
like Library Park, but the Frisbees would fly into Main Street and we'd cause an accident, so we have to be really careful.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of my travels is lived in Ohio. I have a good friend who's actually on the pro circuit, believe that, for Frisbee golf, and so he's cornered me a few times to go out and play with it when I go back and visit.
Has the commission taken any position or made any comments about the possibility of expanding its membership above 5 members?
Nothing in a public forum, although, there's been some discussions offline about different thoughts, and as you might imagine, it kind of runs the gamut. I'm going to use this as my personal invitation to share my thoughts. It's I think the constitution of the commission should reflect what you think you need out of the community. There's a wide band of people to choose from. I believe there were 6 or 7 candidates that you had to choose from this year, which I think is a run on the Recreation and Parks Commission. As I think you want to get the diversity across that organization, to hear from all sectors of the community. We looked at it and said, do we have a good connection to the Joslin Center and the seniors that we have? Well, not exactly. Do we have younger folks that are represented? Do we have those connections there? I think we do through our families, but not necessarily with the current constitution of the membership. Then you look across the programs that we have, and are 5 commissioners enough to give you that experience base? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you need a couple other commissioners who could round out, because 5 people only touch so much of the community, and it is a very vibrant program. So I think I've hedged a set here or there, but if you were to put 2 additional commissioners on, which is what I think I've heard through the community, I would say do so from the perspective of understanding what the representation you want across the commission, and is that the investment in resources that you want from that. As far as changing the content, you have different ways you can influence the constituency of the commission, and that's through appointments, which is 1 commissioner every 4 years, or 2 because it's 5 sitting 2 in 1 year, or you have the opportunity to expand if you think that's where you'd want to go.
I've noticed some discussion about fencing the parks. Is there a problem with children running out of the parks into the street that we need to fence our parks off?
Well, that came up in the last commission meeting, and a couple of the commissioners wanted to know what they thought the safety aspects were from the fire department or the police department for responding to calls. So I know that we have an action out to hear what that is, and we'll receive that information tomorrow evening.
Okay.
I can say anecdotally, I don't know that I've heard anything unusual in regards to injuries or something. I know that in my personal history, I had a friend that we lost due to a park incident like that going out into traffic. So my ears would be very attuned. And I haven't heard of any such tragedy or anything of an accident. But then again, maybe I don't know because I don't touch all elements of the community.
Yeah, with cell phones today, which we didn't have when I was a young parent, maybe it's distracting enough that it's difficult to focus on your main mission, watching your kids.
There's some discussion in that regard. I do notice at a couple of parks that I looked at that there's potentially a layout or a design that could facilitate that. And so I know I put in the back of my head that at the next opportunity to do some upgrade or construction at a park, that maybe laying things out a little bit differently might be more conducive than putting up fencing. There's folks who don't like the fencing aspect. It serves a lot of purposes, but the type of fencing and everything else can also detract. It can also cause its own issues and concerns.
Right. And it's also very costly.
Right. You have once you put it in, you're going to sustain it. You want to make it.
And we would rather put that money.
Right. So there's a balance through all of that, and I think the commission is going to try to work its way through that a little bit more to understand it, and hopefully come forward with a recommendation to you all.
Thanks to you and all the commission members for their service to the city. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Brand.
Great. Thank you for the report. Thank you to the commissioners. I appreciate it. I appreciate reaching out to the community, the surveys you were talking about. I think paddleboard and golf frisbee or frisbee golf is interesting. I'm not a big fan of expanding the Parks Commission. I think 5 people on anything, just getting those people together is often a challenge. But certainly there's opportunities to serve on subcommittees if people want to serve with commissioners on something for things of interest to the community. As far as fencing, I grew up here, as I know a lot of your family did, and we used to have fences on parks, and they were ugly and they required maintenance, and they were taken down. And I think the parks look better and more inviting. So thank you, and please let us know what you need from council.
We will do so. We'll use the staff in certain regards to communicate, but the other aspect is if you would like to see us in a little more regular presence or something like that, I think we'd also be attuned to coming in and chatting every so often, at least once a year, to help you with your strategic planning. That one I would make a point of.
Thank you. And thank you for the kind words you said about Meredith and her staff. This is a centennial year, and they have, put in a yeoman's effort. They've been at everything, and they've been players and doing the heavy lifting, and always with a smile on their face.
One of the best parts about being on the commission is being able to work intimately with the staff. As a citizen who was not involved, I knew there was a lot that goes on, and a lot that goes on behind the scenes. And I get to actually meet those people and work with them on a monthly basis. Love it. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Good evening.
Okay, next, in the background, waiting very patiently, consideration and possible action to receive and file an annual report of the Arts Advisory and Cultural Committee Fiscal Impact None. City Manager.
I believe Sally Martin's here to speak to what our newest commission has been up to and planning to do.
Good evening.
Hi, Sally.
I'm Sally Martin, as you know. I am here as the Vice Chair of the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. We're a new committee starting this year. We are currently a 7-member committee with 2 vacancies due to losing that guy in the back row to the planning committee.
Planning, yeah, well,
Our former chairman. And there was another member who was actually unavailable after all was said and done. So we have those 2 vacancies, and we are growing to an 11-member committee. It's really important for us, and we've had this discussion, is that we want to bring people onto this committee who represent a broad variety. We want a diverse group of people. We're looking at people of different ages, different backgrounds, ethnicities, experiences, because I think that really, when you talk about the arts, it isn't just a one-pointed perspective. It's really broad, and when you look at classic art, you can also look at graffiti art, and they're both relevant, and they may appeal to different groups. So we're looking at really broadening the membership of our committee. I know you have, I hope you have the document that really talks about what we have been doing. We've created our vision and our mission. Our vision being that we are the canvas. We're open, we're receptive. When you're in the arts, it's a little bit more loosey-goosey than other areas. So we're receptive and opening to hearing people. And our mission is that we're going to listen, create, and promote the arts. Strategies and tactics that follow that, the main strategy, in my opinion, being that we want to foster, and it says this, the first one, foster a creative environment that helps make El Segundo a culturally rich community and a great place to live and work. And we have the beginnings of a lot of that. There's a lot of things going on with the art walk. There are performances going on. There's all kinds of exciting energy and things happening, and we want to leverage that so that people really love living and working in this community. We'll be developing over time, we'll be developing a plan for the committee and a direction for the city. It's a bit soon to even approach that yet. I mean, we've barely gotten through the basics. But as we look toward tactics that are coming up, you will hear from us shortly, I'm sure. One of the first things we're going to be doing is looking at some temporary installations. We may be looking at the water tank on Grand as a potential place to do something creative. We also have discussed perhaps doing something with the missing planter stands on Main Street, and even the Civic Center Plaza. So we'll be doing a lot of that. We're just beginning, in fact, this coming meeting, which is now moved to the 29th of the month, we'll be establishing some subcommittees for people to start really focusing on the work. And then secondly, we'll be looking at the membership and trying to recruit new members. There will be an article coming up in the El Segundo Herald with Brian Simon. I'm trying to schedule that now, but that will be following our next meeting. And the purpose of that, obviously, is to tell the community more about our existence, what we're trying to accomplish, and also let people know that there are our committee seats that we're looking for people who are interested in participating. Anything I can answer more specific for?
I just thank you and thank the work of the committee. I know you guys have newly formed and have jumped to it, and there's a lot of great ideas bouncing around, and I just really appreciate that you were able to create a vision and a mission that's really identifies with El Segundo. So thank you very much for your efforts and the team's effort.
It's hard reining in those creative types.
Yes.
It's not the easiest place.
And
That's how the
kudos
term-
to staff for trying to help do that.
And we are learning. We are educable, you know, we are learning. And I think it's helpful, I don't know, because I have that corporate side and the creative side both. It's kind of,
The best.
I can understand what Aracia is trying to accomplish and try to communicate that, so.
Also appreciate Esmoa, who's been hosting most of the meetings
Yeah.
now, and will continue as the group gets larger. Be a good place because it's expandable, and the support from Ava Sweeney towards this committee, well beyond just the ideas. I think what we're trying to do here is bring some balance to life here in the city. We have a reputation as the best place in the world for technology and engineering, science, STEM, and we're very proud of that and want to maintain that. But we also want to work on other parts of our brain and speak to arts and cultural issues to present a city that will be attractive to visitors and enhance our economy all at the same time. So I'm really happy we set this commission in motion last year, and I just think it's going to get better as time goes on.
I agree.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Are you enjoying what you're doing
Oh, it's
on the
awesome.
committee?
This is Dolores McAllister. She's in the back of the room. She's also a member of the committee.
Okay.
And she has sat here to support me to 9:35, and she was here before I got here at 6:45. So she's a trooper. But, you know, people who appreciate the arts, it's like there's a passion about it. It's not just another task.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Dolores. Thank you, Jay. I mean, it's very exciting and a lot of
It is.
vibrancy. So
It will be fun to see what happens.
yes, especially since you're weaving in all the arts, not just
Correct.
right, like
Not just visual arts.
yes, visual arts, but music, dance, everything. So
And when things come up, of course, we'll be presenting those to you for your approval, so you'll be completely looped in what's taking place.
well, thank you for your commitment and your time, and for waiting till 9:30 tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we'll thank my husband, too.
All right, consent agenda. Any polls?
Yes, number 11.
Okay, I want to pull number 10. So do I have a motion to approve items 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14, and 15?
So moved.
I'll second them.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, 4-0. Thank you. I pulled item 10. Consideration and possible action to, one, award a standard public works contract to All American Asphalt for the east of Sepulveda Boulevard Pavement Rehabilitation Project number PW 17-27. And two, award a standard public works professional services agreement to AKM Consulting Engineers for construction inspection services, fiscal impact $1 million. City Manager?
Well, this project is somewhat exciting to us because these streets are very much in need of rehabilitation. There's a great deal of private development going on these streets with the repositioning of existing buildings, but also the construction of new Frank Gehry design buildings. So I'm very happy that we're matching, the city is matching investment in its infrastructure the same way the property owners are doing that with their properties. And this is really all possible as a result of decisions council made in past years to add engineering staff, to beef up our project management abilities in the Public Works Department. And Ken can speak to everything that's going on, but there really is work going on all over town right now that the Public Works Department is doing a great job in managing. Add anything?
Nothing to add to that. I'm here to answer any questions.
Yeah, I pulled it because I just wanted to thank you and LaFawn for all the work you're doing for the builders who are investing in our city. That's a part of town that really needs some love over there. Some of those roads are, is it called alligator? I mean, they're just, they're in front of spectacular buildings, some of the Frank Gehry buildings, Kite Pharma. I mean, a really important part of town, and I'm grateful to everybody who's investing in those and the city too. And I just want to, again, thank you and LaFawn for all your work.
Well, great. I will add, this is part of a bigger picture that's a result of our pavement management master plan that we prepared 2015. And our goal is to get the what's known as the pavement condition index citywide to 73 in 5 years. And we are, from a program perspective of hitting the right roads and the top priorities and hitting our major arterials like these that are in the worst shape, as recommended by that master plan, and what I've personally done at other places is really key to make that investment as early as we can, because obviously construction costs only go up and pavement exponentially gets more expensive as it deteriorates. So it's our pleasure, and we look forward to keep doing this type of good work.
Right, thanks. And thanks to your entire Public Works staff. You know, Public Works might not always be the sexiest department out there, but they're integral to us having a robust city and roads and water and sewage and everything that's so important. So with that, I make a motion to approve.
Can I just add one
Oh,
thing?
yes.
So I know we talked, about this is about the asphalt, but also about the mediums in that area. Are we looking at doing anything with the mediums, or are we just, like, what's the plan for, because once we put the new resurfacing in, the mediums will become very more exposed as not, or are they, what is the status of those? Because like when
I'm looking at the street list. Are there any specific ones? Because typically,
no, I'm just saying, like, when you fix something, you expose something else that may look tired. So I just want to make sure that we're looking at the whole area holistically. All right.
Well, certainly each year we look at, as part of our CPAC process and prioritizing, for example, the medians and landscaping with Parks and Rec to see overall how we want to program those. And there is, for example, I believe a El Segundo median improvement project that's being considered for the coming year. So each pavement project really is focused on the segment and how poor a condition it is in and when it needs to be rehabilitated, outside of really the aesthetics and the parkways or the medians.
Okay.
And Douglas Street is not on this list, but there has been talk in the past about possibly getting some Measure R funds because it's arterial, to spruce that up and make it more inviting.
To the former part, one of the things we really try and do is utilize non-general funds for major arterials anywhere. And for example, one of the benefits of these saving the gas tax monies for this type of major work, or what we did on Imperial where we used Measure R and gas tax. We do look to do that, and we have that programmed into El Segundo Boulevard major rehab with those types of monies in a couple of, not next fiscal year, but due to saving some more money the following. For the overall aesthetic and beautification type of projects, looking at a entire view of the roadway, that's something, again, that we try and consider when we all talk together in our strategic planning and the CPAC kind of process. That's, I think, the way I could answer that this time.
Oh, well, just to keep it on the radar, any opportunity for those funds. Great.
Sure.
So, did you have something, Dr.
I want to second your motion.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't want to assume the $1 million is in the adopted budget, correct?
The answer is yes, and
That's good.
400,000 of that is the general fund, and the other is the gas tax.
Thank you so much.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0. Thank you. Councilmember Perstek, you pulled item 11.
Yes.
Read it.
Consideration and possible action to authorize the city manager to execute a professional service agreement with CivicPlus to purchase, install, and implement recreation management software for online program registration, facility booking, and administration related to the programs and services offered through the Recreation and Parks Department. Fiscal impact not to exceed $35,000. So I wanted to pull this because I know that we have gone through a whole a whole RFP process to identify the right software for the rec park, because the rec park software is going to end of life in December. And with the new added to Aquatic Center, we definitely recognize that we need a new software to streamline our operations, as well as actually even be able to accommodate the new Aquatic Center. So I don't know if Meredith, you wanted to give an update, but I know at this juncture, the tech committee has been part of the process, and there's a difference of opinion on which way to go. So I want to make sure that we discuss it and discuss the opinions of the rec park director as well as the tech committee, because I'm concerned that we're at a complete disaccord. So I want to maybe bring Meredith. You can give us some update and update the council on the status.
Does this have to be determined this evening? Because we just got this letter today from the tech committee. I haven't had a chance to read it, and if we have another couple weeks, we could hear both points of view on around the product, and then vote.
We've already talked to the. Just jump in here where I'm not saying it right, but I know that the tech team Scott has gone out to find out if we can extend our end of life in December, and they said that yes, that there are other cities that are not ready, so we can't. It's just going to cost us some money. I'm not sure if a week or 2 weeks will impact the project that much.
Looks like the price is roughly the same, whichever product, just in scanning this. So I just appreciate having a little more time on the transaction, because it's important to people and want to do the right thing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Meredith.
So we did go out to RFP and utilized a subcommittee of the tech committee to help us draft that RFP. The RFP received 2 responses back from 2 software companies, one called Perfect Mind and one called Civic Rec. And after evaluation of those pieces, we did a number of evaluations and different layers of that, one with the rec park staff. We've also included the finance staff and the IS staff, as those departments are directly impacted by software choice. The tech committee has been involved all along. Through the different evaluations, we invited both of those software vendors to provide demonstrations and presentations. Those were public meetings of the Technology Committee. 4 members attended, and I think the 5th one viewed a video or phoned in. So 5 of the members were involved in the presentations and the demonstration. Following that, the subcommittee reconvened and we discussed the 2 demonstrations, the pros and cons of each software system. And at that time, our rec staff, as well as the finance and IS, were in agreement that Civic Rec seemed to be more of a better fit at this point for our city and our department. Perfect Mind, the other software system, definitely has a more modern approach to technology, and I think it's great to have such a diverse set of individuals really looking at this project from those different perspectives. Obviously, I do not speak the tech language. It's not my expertise, nor do I want it to be. So I've learned a lot through this process in not only just terminology, but really how to look at software in a different way. My focus is obviously the functionality of this software, both from the end user standpoint, but also very heavily on my staff and our administration of the programs and services that we provide. And that's, I think, the key difference in these 2 softwares. The time that we have to put into transitioning and implementation will probably differ greatly. The one system that we're recommending, Civic Rec, is, I guess you could say, more simple. It's more similar to what we're used to. And so I think that's what initially attracts our staff to that program. But also, it has the functionality and certain features that we're looking for, including facility booking, both internally and online. It has an internal league scheduler that we can use to automate our softball leagues, our basketball leagues, soccer leagues. So different functions that Perfect Mind doesn't offer. What Perfect Mind does offer is, like I said, a more modern approach, a more modern interface in terms of how you navigate through the mobile piece of it. And I think that's what attracts the Technology Committee to that piece of software. So after evaluating it, we did follow-up question and answer phone calls. Staff was on those phone calls. The Tech Committee was invited, but unfortunately, due to scheduling, weren't able to participate. But staff did take their questions and asked those questions and got some clarification and relayed those information back to them. And I think the next step for us was to really look at references and go out to other cities and see how these software systems were working, functioning. And that's really, to me, what really turned me 100% to the Civic Rec side. And the reason is that Perfect Mind is a newer software. It's about 3 years old. They're new to the municipal parks and recreation software platform. And through all of my conversations with probably about 5 or 6 cities, none of them were jumping up and down about the implementation, the transition. All of them said they've had some challenges and bumps in the road. So that was a big concern for me. And I think that they have a better future forward-thinking approach, and that's where they're going. And but I just don't think that they're there yet. And that's the biggest concern for me, is to invest double the cost. Perfect Mind is quoting a $50,000 year one implementation versus Civic Rec at $25,000. Now there's some discrepancy on how many hours they've estimated. Pretty different. But again, I think that's because Perfect Mind is a bit more complicated to implement. And so that's sort of the gist of it. I can get into the nuts and bolts if you wanted me to on the reference checks and some of the challenges that other cities are facing, but that was the big turning point for me.
And I think, to tag on to what Meredith is saying, neither solution
is a great solution. I mean, neither solution is wowing anybody. There's pitfalls with each solution. So that's why I think what complicates this decision is that there's no, I think you summed it up well, where the civic rec solution is very, is the ideology behind the system is very similar to what we do today, where we had challenged the tech committee to look out what should we be doing for the future. So their approach is the other solution is much more flexible and more newer technology, and the ideology is a little different, so is more forward thinking. So that's where the struggle is, and I'm not sure if there's a good answer. So the best answer would have been, well, I asked the tech committee, what's the lifetime of this new software, and all of them said 3 years we should be looking at another solution. 3 years. The unfortunate thing is we have a 72 project backload on IT, so the chances of us re-looking this in 3 years is probably slim to none. So we're going to be stuck with this solution for quite a while, because we're just not in that position to be redoing our systems and turning them around as much as we should be. So that's another complication. So that's, I'm not sure, I'm really on a fence. So I'm not sure. I mean, I hear Meredith and I agree with her, but then I hear the tech team and I agree with them. So I'm really on the fence on this one.
Their letter.
Yeah, they made a comment in there that
There should be more options.
Yeah.
The process was too short in duration to yield those, so we're forced to choose between these two products.
that apparently nobody's thrilled to death about. So
Yeah.
when you have bad choices, if the recommendation is to go back and get more choices, I don't know why we wouldn't follow that.
So would have extending the RFP period have increased the number of companies that responded?
It's possible. It's definitely possible. I think where we were really striving to go live in December. Winter is our slowest season. It's the best season to train staff and to get up and running. You have less activity in the software system. That was the goal. Number one, we issue our Rec ID cards on an annual basis. So, there'll be, it was just more ideal to implement the system prior to that period. And also the Aquatic Center is a main driving point on our timeline too. And so when we went to the tech committee at that time, gosh, I can't remember what month it was, but I think the tech committee started in November, so shortly thereafter. We wanted to get the ball rolling, and subcommittees were created, and drafting the RFP took longer than expected, and so every sort of stage, given the collaboration, took a little bit longer, and so our window for having that RFP open sort of got shorter in that timeline to stick to that go live goal. So yes, I think it was open for 3 weeks. And we probably could have gotten 1 or 2 more responses. I've asked other cities how many responses they receive, and most of them are 3 to 4. And to be honest, Civic Rec we are happy with that choice. We would be happy with that choice. It's not that that we're not thrilled with it necessarily. We think that it checks all the boxes, and certainly appreciate the tech committee stretching us and had an open mind through the process. Of course, more would be nice. And if that's the direction of the council, we're certainly willing to explore that. Some of the vendors that didn't participate in the proposal commented that it was more about they didn't have a previous relationship with the city and therefore didn't feel that they had a real good chance of winning the bid. That's one comment that I heard.
Did we have relationships with either of the 2 companies that responded?
We had had previous demos from Civic Rec, and Perfect Mind. We had not had any demos. But like I told the tech committee last night, we've been exploring vendors for the better part of 2.5 years, along with probably half the cities in California. So there's a lot of talk about what software systems are out there and are available. And there's a lot of talk about the ones that are causing problems.
Mhm. So I'm hesitant, if I understand, to spend twice as much for software that's not mature yet, that we would be paying to get the bugs out.
Right. And I think if we feel it internally, then our customers are definitely going to feel it also.
And just for clarification on it's not really twice as much because the way they costed it out, I think the cost for Civic Rec will go up. According to what the tech committee was saying, as far as how the RFP came out, they feel that they underbid it a little bit. The implementation will not be as quick as they anticipated.
So Civic Rec estimated 45 hours of development and data migration. And it also includes 2 on-site training visits for $25,000. For Perfect Mind estimated about 200 hours. And any on-site training is additional. That started at $50,000, and there's no opportunity to go down in price. Whereas Civic Rec, we can still have these conversations to figure out what is the right amount. And like I put in the staff report, I would suggest a not to exceed amount so that we have a little flexibility as we work through that process.
So my other thing is I feel like Drew really should have a chance to weigh in on this, being that he's been on the committee. So like I said, I'm really on the fence. One minute I go one way and another minute I go another way. So
So Drew was
is the other person on the committee
present in some of these discussions.
Yes.
It just troubles me that we have some friction between our tech committee of experts that we appointed and staff, and that maybe is a bigger issue than
right.
which one of these products is selected.
Well, and I think unfortunately we, and I know Meredith as team had been looking for systems, but we don't have a robust IT department in staff. We have 3 people, and then none of them have really done major implementations of programs. So it's, the approach of how when you go look at new software, when you have an IT staff or person that has done system implementations is different than from a user perspective. So that's where I think some of the rub is. But both parties are working really well. So, I mean, even though there's disagreements, I think the teams, kudos to Meredith and her team and the tech committee. Even though there's been different opinions, they work together and there's partnership there. So I wouldn't you agree? I feel like I think both teams are fighting for what they should be fighting for, and Meredith has expertise in Parks and Recs. The IT has expertise in technology. It's just they're not aligning at the moment.
Yeah, like I said, my biggest hang up was in the reference checks, and if I were going to employ a person and had the same feedback, I would think twice about it, or ready to remodel my kitchen or whatever it might be. And that was really the biggest hang up for me.
No, that's a legitimate concern. Yeah. I've been involved in implementing 2 big systems, Oracle and SAP, which was enormous, and that took years. And I mean, to me, what the users think is very important, and I share your concerns, and I support staff's recommendation, because you want something that staff can begin implementing. This is the time of year coming up with winter and the pool opening.
Yeah, I mean, the timeline is important, and that's another factor that we really have to keep fresh.
Well, I would, I'm reading this letter that we just got from, the tech committee here, whatever, and hearing some of the comments here talking about the proposal period and how we may have limited the number of responses to us by the schedule here. And I guess I would like to offer some perspective here on doing something now. That, from my perspective, the tech committee is there because we don't have an overall hierarchy of how are we going to have systems working together in the city going forward here, and we're trying to get more uniform. So I I place a lot of value in their concepts and their thought process going through here. As far as timing on this, kind of what I'm hearing is, neither one of these are great, but this is the better one today. Tech committee, if I'm reading this right, says it may not be, they're comparable in cost. One may be better in the future, and that's not the one that you're recommending. And I so I'm getting hit with all this at one time. It's
Right.
hard to absorb all this, but if we did something on a proposal schedule to meet, and I'm going to say this, a self-imposed deadline, and we detracted from the quality of the proposal, then I would say that that's probably the wrong way to run the business. And I think, if I could give you any advice, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. Not taking a shortcut and not doing something along the way there. So I too would like to have Drew weigh in on this and push this until the next meeting. So
Don, what would you,
That was his suggestion.
oh, you want to push?
to read the letter and try to absorb this.
See what Drew Boyles has to say when he circles back around, and then vote on it. Maybe we can still make that
Well,
December deadline.
Well,
It would be my desire that the department and the tech committee bring us a joint recommendation going forward instead of conflict. I mean, if we're going to hit on all cylinders, that's what it's going to take, in my opinion. So whatever it takes to make that happen, I think would be my advice to you, is make that happen.
But what if it can't happen?
Good luck with that.
If it can't happen, then
Well, I
bring
think,
me a letter that says, for these reasons, it can't happen, and council, you guys make the decision for us. And when you do that, look out, because I can flip a coin or do something even less creative. We're invested in our people here and trying to make better decisions, and we have to use the process and use it to our advantage. So I'm optimistic that they'll be able to come up with something.
We're also trying to provide a usable platform for our customers.
Well,
And for
I
our-
like the concept of a mobile platform. I think I value that maybe more than a comfort factor for training people at this point. But and I don't do mobile stuff, so I'll take that, figure that one out.
Right.
so maybe what we could do is, or if you want to do is have maybe the two companies have a meeting, bring in the two companies separately, obviously, with the tech committee, and have them reassure them or give them insight into some of the concerns and issues that they had, and have some open discussions about it.
Sure, we can work with
I mean, there might be a lack of interest. It's only, what, a $25,000 contract? 25 and
35.
50?
Yeah.
I mean, right. They might not want to invest that much of their time to come sell this again. It's not that big a contract.
We're hopefully looking for something that kind of exists out there a little bit. We're not looking for somebody to.
Well, then that would be the one staff is recommending.
Do a little more research.
A little more time. Meredith, but I
Right.
applaud you, Meredith. You've been really very good, and
Okay.
you've done a great job.
So we're going to wait for Mayor Pro Tem Boyles to come back, and in the meantime, staff and the tech committee are going to either get together or come up with some sort of suggestion. That's what you were asking for.
I'm asking for, if it's possible, give us a joint recommendation going forward.
We will certainly try, and it's not for lack of effort on anyone's part in this, and I think that honestly, there are some different priorities at the tech committee that has that staff than staff. Staff is very mission oriented. They want to get things done. They want to move on to the next project, and we're also very focused on functionality and quality and getting things done. And the tech committee is looking at a longer term solution. And I think that they really like the technology and the infrastructure, the architecture of this software, but we can't overcome some of these functionality issues. And we'll talk to the tech committee some more and to Drew some more about some of those functionality issues. And there's probably a blended solution, at least in my mind, which is to go with what works for now and to look at a longer term best technology and architecture solution that works with where the city's going overall with respect to technology.
Okay. Well, we'll be back in September. Thank you, Meredith. Okay. New business, consideration and possible action regarding first reading and introduction of ordinance which sets forth an expedited, streamlined permitting process for electric vehicle charging stations as required by state law. Fiscal impact none. City Manager.
Lucas Quach, our building superintendent, is going to present this item. You don't get to see Lucas very often, but he's doing an excellent job for us in running the building side of the Planning and Building Department.
Great. Well, thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, well, let me start. First off, good evening, or late evening, with the council and Madam Mayor. I'm here today to talk about electric vehicle charging stations. So the main purpose is actually to introduce an ordinance to streamline permitting, the permitting process for electric vehicle charging station. And this stems from Assembly Bill 1236, which recently passed, actually 2015, by the state. It's mainly, the goal is to promote and encourage the use of electrical vehicles and to reduce some of the obstacle in the way. So there's one of the limiting factor now is basically the lack of charging stations. And this bill, how it applied to us is trying to promote that. But let me kind of give you the macro view of the electric vehicles as far as the projection and where all these professionals think they will be. Electric vehicle costs over the next 20, 30 years projected to significantly reduce. And as a function of that, there's going to be major demand, substantial demand for it. In fact, by 2035 or 2030, they expect that 35% of all vehicles sales will be electrical vehicles. But to go down, to put some geographic relevance to us, we focus on California. And California being on the forefront of the green revolution and the sustainability, EVs just falls right in line with it. It's, to some, it's synonymous with good air quality, reduction in greenhouse gases, and a good energy policy. It's also aligned with the governor's office on the net zero goals for the state. In fact, in 2012, Governor Brown issued an executive order basically setting a standard for the state to have at least 1.5 million zero-emission vehicles on the road by 2025. I think there's, I have some numbers here that kind of give some impact it already has. This is from the 2011 to 2016. And basically it shows that California accounts for about half of all the electric vehicles sold. So right now it's about 250,000 vehicles. So going down into the nuts and bolts of the ordinance, what the illustration there basically shows that you have your electric vehicle, which would include the battery and the charger, and they need the charging mechanism, and that's the charging station. And the illustration in the box there is how is that going to be related to us, the building division. That part there is, in general, is called the charging station. And basically there are three types of charging components, mechanism. The first one is level 1. This one is basically just plug into your 120 volt plug at your house, what you have now. The problem with this connector is it's extremely slow. It charges about 5 miles or so per hour. So, you have to leave it overnight to make a short commute to work. I wouldn't be able to get to work on that charge. Level 2 is a little better. It's about double to quadruple the capacity in how fast it can charge. You see a lot more of these around. The one in our parking lot is actually level 2, and Joe used it a lot.
Good job.
Level 3 is a much faster. It's a direct current, a DC charger, and you can charge about 80 miles or so in about half an hour. This is more of a commercial use. It's quite expensive, in the tens of thousands of dollars to install. So this chart I have here is basically illustrate the differences between the three. What that shows that even though the level 1, people can use it at home without any much alteration, level 2 is where it's actually practical. In fact, 80% of the charging being done in the home. So that's how this leads to what we do as building and safety. When the consumer wants to put the level 2 charger in their homes or parking lots or whatever facilities they have. So the ordinance basically requires jurisdiction to have a streamlined process so that people know exactly what need to be provided so that they can submit plans and specs that can get quick approval. So what we'll be doing, and we are doing and we'll continue to do, is we'll create submittal guidelines that are simple to use with lots of advisory and commentary for how the applicant can submit plan, get it to us. And for the majority of the project, we will be able to do it over the counter. For the more complex ones, we'll probably need a little time, maybe a week or so, but that's mainly to deal with other issues associated with the code for accessibility, health and safety, of course, the safety associated with the electrical system. We also will be accepting submittal through email via PDF just to help that process, to speed up that process a little bit also. So these are some of the documentation and pamphlets that we will be having online, but we'll be also having at the front counter, submittal guideline, electrical requirements, site plans. So these are, will be readily available for the consumer's use. What we also have is on our website, we'll provide links to educational YouTube videos on how-tos, the basic of electric vehicles. We're also providing links to utility companies such as Edison, where they can learn about rebates and again, sub-meters or time of use for different rates and things like that. There's also, with all these charging stations around, you kind of need to know where they are. And so we'll be providing links to networks and where they are. So, we hope providing all this information will help promote the use of EVs and further our green policy. So basically, what we're asking of this council is to waive the first reading and introduce the ordinance, adopting the EV charging station streamlined permitting process, and then also set the second reading and adoption of the ordinance on the next meeting on September 5th, 2017. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any question if you have any.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I have one concern.
Yes, sir.
I have no problem with the concept of taking building and planning and looking at the installation of facilities and making sure it meets code. The question I have is, we don't own the electricity. Somehow that's coming in from somewhere. And how do we do the load calcs, and how do we assess that installing this is not going to impact the rest of the currently fed network systems, that the electricity, that's coming into our community here? So, and Sooner or later, you run out of capacity. So who makes that determination, and how does that factor in, is my question.
Well, on our side, we looked at the code in the electrical plants in accordance with the building code. So on our side, but the utility, they will need to get approval from the utility companies first.
So it comes pre-approved to the city that there is capacity there for this before the application
Yes,
can be
so
taken?
we would have the utility would have to okay it first. Like you build a new house, a new development. The developer needs to deal with the utility company as far as what services will be available. And if not, then they would need to work with the utility. But I mean, you're talking about like major projects there. But the majority of the projects that we'll be dealing with are a lot of the residential, where they put in the level 2 charger, where basically they might have to upgrade their existing panel if they're like this 100 amps or so, where they might need to. But
my whole question is, how do we make sure there's enough capacity there before we approve it?
Well, this is a state law, though, so.
Yeah, this is just a permitting, basically asking us to provide a set of standards so that it can quickly, so that the applicant can quickly assemble the plan so that we can approve it.
We have Edison coming, Ken, on the 19th. So we've asked Edison to come on the 19th to give us a presentation on what they're doing to upgrade the systems in El Segundo, and that'd be a perfect time to ask them. I think what Lucas is saying is when there is a service upgrade, people are going to the utilities first, and they're getting sign-off from Edison. If they're able to use the existing service and panel, they probably aren't doing that, so then it becomes more of a question for Edison about how are you managing your network and your system to correctly serve the current demand and the future demand that's being placed on the system.
Is there a mechanism to deny this with the state law? I mean, can Edison turn somebody down asking?
Not that I'm aware of. No, I don't believe we can turn down a electrical permit for Edison's systems issues.
My question was, can Edison turn it down because it's a state mandate?
If you don't have capacity, how can you approve it?
The state law.
I don't think that's the spirit of the state law. I think it's to make sure they're done right.
So I think that you both have points. This is a state mandated city issue to resolve the permitting process.
No problem.
We don't have any issue there. What is Edison doing, though, to look at the future of electricity demands in El Segundo, including those that are being created by electrical vehicle charging stations? And that's a great question, I think, to ask Edison on the 19th.
Just say again, thank heavens the state legislature has solved all the state's problems and they can start mandating things like this. Yes. All right, so we're going to introduce the ordinance.
I'll be glad to introduce and set the second reading for our first meeting in September.
I'll second it.
I think it's just introduced, so.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Item 17.
Thanks, Lucas.
Yes, thank you, Lucas. Informational report on the quarterly updates for the strategic work plan and the key performance indicators through the month of July 2017. Fiscal impact, none.
Members of the City Council, the department heads, and Joe and the Finance Department in particular have been working diligently on the work program. I think Joe's going to give a very high overview tonight of progress towards accomplishing those objectives.
All right, good evening, Mayor Fuentes, City Council members. So tonight we're reviewing the quarterly status update on the fiscal year 16-17 strategic work plan. This is Exhibit A in your packet. Also attached to the staff report is Exhibit B, the quarterly KPIs. So as Greg mentioned, I'm going to give a real high overview of the work plan. So there are a total of 91 work plan items identified in the fiscal year 16-17 strategic work plan. 59 work plan items have either already been completed and successfully implemented or are underway to be completed. These are noted in green on Exhibit A. This represents about 65% of the total work plan items. 25 work plan items with the status of yellow are on track to begin by the end of fiscal year 16-17 or beginning of 17-18 and to be fully completed in 17-18. And this represents about 27% of the total work plan items. At this time, staff is recommending 7 work plan items noted with the status of red to be deferred to fiscal year 18-19 or later for implementation. And again, this is about 8% of the total work plan items. And staff is recommending to defer these items in red to subsequent fiscal years due to a lack of resources, which is either budgetary related or staffing related. So to highlight some of the key successes, we have PD that has developed a curriculum for Citizens Training Academy. The first training class is set to graduate August 24th, 2017. HR has begun the initial research to develop an employee engagement survey and has selected a vendor to design and implement the survey. And this is scheduled to roll out sometime in the fall, which is that's going to be a huge success. Rec and Park has begun the replacement of the synthetic turf at Campus El Segundo.
You want questions as you go or at the end?
Absolutely, sir.
The second bullet, this HR employee engagement survey, what is that? What does that mean, employee engagement?
Well, Lynn, she can speak to the HR director.
This is at our request.
Survey that was part of our goals from the prior year, and got direction that we definitely wanted to move forward with that. So there's a vendor that I've used in the past for employees. So it's, you can call it an employee survey, employee satisfaction survey, employee engagement survey. The difference with just a straight employee satisfaction survey is it focuses on the ESI, Employee Satisfaction Index, but it doesn't necessarily include the engagement piece. And really you want both, because a person cannot be satisfied with certain factors but still be highly engaged, or they may be happy with these things but not engaged. And so the two, having the combination of the two, really is more value added for us to use that information to decide what we do going forward on both fronts.
And I had asked Lynn to add a third level to it, not just employee satisfaction with their immediate supervisor or the city manager, but with city council, because sometimes when there's frustration or a lack of satisfaction, it might be because of decisions council made and not.
And that might be an open-ended question. We have 2 open-ended questions that we were factoring in. One that I think brings forward really specific process improvements that are incredibly value-added for any organization that sometimes don't get bubbled up. But also that could be possibly a second question that we could phrase and work with you that you might want to explore around the council.
Because staff carries out council direction. So if we make a policy decision that management has to carry out and the employees don't like it, then their dissatisfaction should be focused at council and not at the people who are carrying out the policy.
So I do remember you recalled that. So part of the planning was that I was going to reapproach council, talk about maybe how we might want to phrase things around that arena. We have customization capabilities with this survey. It's got all the bones, but we can customize it for some of our unique things we want to focus on.
Thank you, Lynn.
Okay, the city manager and finance have begun working on developing a residential and business community satisfaction survey utilizing the Net Promoter Score methodology. Staff has interviewed several vendors and has selected the most qualified vendor, and that does fall under city manager's contract approval authority. Surveys, again, we're in the process of developing that survey, and the surveys will roll out in the fall of 2017. Finance and department heads have thoroughly analyzed the equipment replacement fund. Approximately 200 items were removed from the schedule, either items that were just inoperable, like typewriters and equipment that is no longer useful. We also set a threshold policy of $5,000 or more to be placed on the replacement schedule. That matches our capitalization policy as well. So this reduction of 200 items represents about an 18% reduction, and this action reduced the required funding from the general fund by $300,000 for fiscal year 17-18. So there was cost savings as a result of this as well.
Those items the 200 items were removed. Why?
So either one, it didn't meet the capitalization threshold of $5,000 or more. And I'll give an example. There are items on there for $500 or $1,000. Those items are considered operational costs that should be incorporated into the department's annual budgets.
So is that a process challenge as far as like, how did they get it on there in the first place? So is that, I mean,
we looked at it from a fresh set of eyes.
Yeah, so I mean, are we instituting a change in the management of that list so that we don't get, this doesn't happen again?
Correct.
So what you're saying, what I also heard was there was things on that were outdated, obsolete. So does that mean we weren't cleaning the list before?
Still used.
You know, I can't speak to what happened in the past when I was not employed with the city. All I know is, moving forward, we took a holistic approach. All the department heads, and my staff, and we spent
So you cleaned up the list.
considerable amount of time on this, cleaned it up very good.
So now, but have we instituted processes within each department so that it doesn't
Yes.
happen again?
Correct. And one example is setting that threshold policy of $5,000 or more. And then the last bullet point on there is, ongoing annual reviews will be conducted late spring, early summer. And one other point is, next year, 17-18 budget, the overall equipment replacement fund will be at 100% funded per plan for the amortization plan. So it's well funded. Now, there are some items that are underfunded, some that are over. In future years, we'll adjust those. Okay, to continue with our successes, Finance has implemented paperless pay stubs citywide. This went live February 2017. Rec and Park is scheduled to move forward with the replacement of class. I guess we'll come back.
That may not be a dark green one right now. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, we still have until September 30th. So we're still
Thank you,
classifying
Joe.
it as green
Joe,
right now.
okay.
And Joe,
Good shot back. I
Joe,
like
real
that.
quick, on the first bullet, how much money have you saved by doing this? Just from a paper, from a time, because
Right.
you've saved both, not only paper, but you've actually saved staff hours.
Staff time as well.
So how much staff hours on a monthly basis have you saved as a result of that?
It's about 8 hours per payroll. That's every 2 weeks. So 16 hours on if there's 2 payrolls in a month. If there's 3, then 24 hours.
Okay.
And then we were printing a little bit over 300 pay stubs because part-timers as well.
So over annually, that could be quite a bit of money.
Absolutely. Economic Development has successfully implemented the EDAC strategic plan that was adopted in July by Council. Finance has begun the process to develop a master user fee schedule and update all user fees. So the kickoff meeting took place on August 3rd with all the departments and the consultant. And department meetings are scheduled to move forward in the month of August with the consultant.
That one, didn't you
As far as the adoption of the new fees, yes, the council will see the first round of the report, more than likely the first meeting in December. All right, to conclude, staff will present one final update on the fiscal year 16-17 work plan in late October. Staff will work on updating the 17-18 work plan based on the priorities identified during the last strategic planning session, plus any carryover items already in progress. So this concludes the presentation. I'm open for any questions.
So the only question I have is, I know I've asked this before, is, you know, with all these KPIs that we're identifying, what processes are we changing as a result of them? Like, what are we learning? What lessons, and could we get a capture of, we know we've streamlined X process because we identified Z, Y, and T, you know, like, I want to make sure that we're using the KPIs to modify how we operate to streamline and become more efficient.
So we only began collecting the data in February, so we're still trying to get that historic trend.
I know, but you should
identified.
you still see some outliers.
Yes.
And there should be some, you know, there should be some, I mean, like, just the simple one as far as, you know, going to paperless. I'm sure there's other areas in the city we could reevaluate our current functionality and our processes and make some modifications.
Water bills.
Yeah. And I know systems, a lot of it is hinged on systems, hence the 72 projects. But if we could, you know, see that as those systems get implemented, that'd be great.
Yeah, an example of that is, you know, finance, and I'm only going to speak for finance, not the other departments, but we identified that, you know, we can institute EFT payments in accounts payable, and we already instituted that with staff as far as any travel reimbursement, cell phone stipend reimbursement, and we're going to start rolling that out to vendors as well, and that will save on printing checks.
Well, and I think when we go through the budgeting process, if staff could identify those areas where they do feel they could have substantial savings in staff time and just cost, and it's hinged upon a system, you know, maybe the cost of the system is, the savings outweighs the cost of systems, so we as a council may make a decision to push something forward that may not physically, like, actually make it in the budget, but because of the savings in the long term, we would push it forward. So if we could see that, that would be great.
And I thank you for bringing the successes in, all the green ones. I guess one of these days we'll be strong enough to talk about the yellows and the reds too, right?
By that time, they'll be greens.
It is late.
No.
But yeah, thank you.
No, it's a great start, Joe.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I mean,
Truly appreciate it.
Effort went into it.
a lot of effort, and thank you to all the teams for, you know, this is a huge step in the right direction.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, reports. City Manager.
Briefly, I just want to announce that the city is hosting a community meeting here in the council chambers next Monday night at 6 p.m. to talk to the residents around Clutter's Bluff, talk about issues that are happening out there, potential solutions, and probably the first in a series of meetings or steps to address some of those issues. And that concludes my
Next
report.
Tuesday, you said?
Next Monday.
Next Monday.
Next Monday, the 21st, 6 p.m. in the city council chambers.
And then while you're having that conversation, I'm not sure if it would complicate it, but, you know, one of the things we do have to discuss with the residents is parking, and, you know, the use of, like, especially around Clutter's Bluff, around people parking with Uber, you know, dropping off for airport parking. It's just what would, you know, what kind of solutions could be out there.
Well, and aren't we waiting for LAX to conduct a parking survey? So we'll need that data. Yeah. Thank you. City Attorney.
Nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
City Clerk.
Nothing this evening.
We already heard from our City Treasurer this evening. Councilmember Brand.
Okay, for those of you still,
We only have one person, no, two people from from the community in the audience.
watching us on television, don't forget our loyal followers.
Yes, I only see one person not being paid to be here tonight, so. Carl Jacobson.
Yeah, that's it.
What a surprise. Okay, I want to give a shout out to our police department because of the effective job that they have done over the last months in enforcing the new parking ordinance. It really worked. Once we finally got it written down and approved, they went to bat implementing it and cleared up most of the problem quite quickly. It really went well. I'm aware of how it's going in the north part of Del Air, where the sheriff is not enforcing the permit parking process that was put in after a 3-year battle, and it's not working any good over there. It's TSA workers and restaurant employees at the airport are taking up all the residential parking for blocks there. And it just shows the difference between enforcement. Here we have it, thanks to our police department, follow through. And with the sheriff, we don't have it over there. So it serves a great contrast. Second, a shout out to the POA who came to the rescue of our high school valedictorian recently, who with her family, when she was visiting the campus, she's going to be going to school later this month, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Someone broke into their home on Center Street and took the money that she had earned through tutoring students, $2,000 worth. The POA took that crime report. They just took on a personal responsibility of trying to make her whole. And last week presented the young lady with a check for $5,000 for her education that they had gotten through crowdfunding, and they themselves had made a contribution to. It's one of the cool things about living in this town, because people cared, and they stepped up to help a really wonderful family. And it's been great for me to get to know them in this last couple of weeks, but really want to thank the POA for doing such a good deed here in El Segundo. I see the soccer fields getting redone down the end of Mariposa, and that's great. The high schools are done, so we have really new soccer fields in this town. I'll give a report on this consecutive day walk streak, because people ask me about this all the time, so every few months. Today we're at 411 straight days. We made it through the first year at 365 days and just kept on pushing. And remember, there was a half marathon involved in that. So it just gets bigger each day. And it takes a commitment, of course, and managing the time to do that. But it's a very good thing for you. And I recommend other people to try to put one together for themselves. I see a lot of people may not know that we are changing the name of Sepulveda Boulevard to Pacific Coast Highway, because I still see the police reports, the fire reports, the reports throughout this agenda, and different city communications all talk about Sepulveda. That's a street that used to be here, but it's been changed to Pacific Coast Highway, and I'd like the staff and to help use that term. And
we are awaiting official approval from Caltrans.
Okay.
Which is forthcoming.
Forthcoming. I don't know if I believe Caltrans is forthcoming with anything, but we'll see. And then on the 3rd, we're all planning to come together here on the 5th of September as a council. So we're going to take a vote on TopGolf. And this last thing that we deferred for Rec and Park, can we also deal with when we should set our elections? Remember, that got deferred. And can we get that back on so we can deal with it? So, because we've got to get it done by January, I think, of 18. And it's nice if we're all here on that. We have a variety of solutions. So I'm hoping we can get that on the agenda September 5th to vote on and craft our El Segundo City Council solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brand. Councilmember Perstuck?
Yeah, so I wanted to thank the Parks and Recs for doing an amazing camp out again this year. I know there were a lot of kids and families attended. I heard from many families that it was a great night out, sleeping on Brett Field. And then also shout out to Barbara Voss and her team for putting, well, her team of one, and EDAC putting together the Yelp event, which was I attended, which was a great night where we brought over 150 elite Yelpers to town to try out our restaurants and to promote our little town. And I just want to remind everybody about the car show this weekend. It should be a great event that the Chamber and the POA are co-sponsoring.
Thank you. Councilmember Dugan?
I'm staring down Meredith right now. I caught an email last week about the plunge having a filter leak, and I saw that it was repaired and being tested. Ken, back in service. So I would like to thank you so much for acting so quickly and so efficiently in getting that done. That's a great effort. Thank you so much. That's all I did.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Boyles is out of town this week. I have an item under my name, consideration and possible action to appoint an alternate council member to the City School Affairs Subcommittee Board. Fiscal impact, none. So was that a request from the council?
Council did request that, similar to the fashion that the school board uses, that when one of the members of that committee is going to be absent, they send an alternate.
There's 2 on there from the school district and 2 from the city?
That's correct. The mayor and the mayor pro tem.
Yeah. Well, I'll be glad to be an alternate. I might not have to do anything if the people show up that are the real people. Sounds like an easy assignment.
Any other comments?
Do you have to name a specific alternate, or is it just somebody fills in for them when they're not here?
I think staff would like to know who the first and second alternates are, so know who to call first.
We have 1 volunteer. Do we have a volunteer for second? Would you like to be the second?
Yeah, I'll be the second volunteer. That means that 2 people have to miss, before it gets to me.
Pretty
so
safe.
yeah, I'm feeling pretty safe about that
He's
one.
safe.
That's like draft lottery number 364, right, or something like that.
So can I just appoint, or do we need to have a motion for that?
Well, I think if Carol goes for the 3rd spot, we've got
Yeah.
we got it made.
I'll
right
be
there.
3rd.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Several things, like Carol said, the Yelp event was really wonderful. I didn't attend that night because I was at the City School Affairs Subcommittee meeting. I want to remind everybody that August 27th is the Centennial Carnival at Chevron Park. It is going to be a fantastic event with rides and games, and there's giveaways right now. If you're one of the first people to buy your tickets, we have toys donated by Mattel. The Centennial Committee has been working feverishly along with Meredith Pettit and her staff, and I just encourage everybody to get your tickets before we sell out. Also, I saw the coyote sign up at Rec Park, so I want to thank the police department. I know that Lieutenant Lehman's been working on that, and Public Works for putting them up. Thank you, and I remind people that we want El Segundo to be unattractive to coyotes. Also, I missed our last meeting. It was the second meeting I ever missed. The first was when my mother passed away, because I had an incredible opportunity to go to China for 11 days and represent the city of El Segundo and the state of California with other local electeds, 3 assembly members, some mayors and council members from Southern California, as long as some nonprofits. And we went over to develop relationships with government government officials, because they are not elected there, they are appointed, and also some of the businesses there. I toured an automobile manufacturing factory, which was very interesting. We also went to a region of China that manufactures 70% of the LEDs in the world, the entire world from this one region. We went to a mall that was 10 stories, probably had a couple hundred stores that were all LED lighting, and it was one of 5 malls in the region. So we also saw a lot of development with high rises and their plans for developing more. They have light rail, they have a bullet train. It was all very interesting. It was staggering in its enormity. Just the size of the country is enormous. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity, but really what I'm more grateful for is to return home and to live in the United States of America. Because while they have a capitalist economy, it still is a communist government. And they have censoring there. And maybe this wouldn't be the part that they were thrilled for me to share, but you can watch CNN and it goes black for 5 minutes. And then it comes back. And there were a lot of times where we didn't really have access to the internet, or it was very spotty, and had stories of someone whose son taught there for a year, and texts were going back and forth saying some things that weren't complimentary, and they were denied access to the internet. So while they're making great strides with capitalism, we still have so many freedoms that we enjoy here as the United States, and we can speak out against our government, and we have First Amendment rights. And so while it was really an interesting trip, and I'm very grateful, and you'll see a pretty cool picture in the next week or two in the El Segundo Herald that I was able to take, there is no place like the United States of America. So, yeah. Yes, especially El Segundo. So this evening we are closing. Oh, yeah, public communications, sorry. Any public communications? There really is only one member of the public there. Carl, do you have anything to say? No?
Carl.
Okay.
We need to make it to 11.
All right, okay. So this evening we are closing with a memorial. Betty Lou Powell, age 88, passed away on August 1st. Betty graduated from Wesleyville High School and attended Slippery Rock College. She was a life member of the Order of the Eastern Star. Betty moved to California in 1966 with her husband Jim and son Chris and made their home in El Segundo. Betty was very proud to have been a 50-year-plus resident of El Segundo. She enjoyed working as a shipping clerk at Continental Airlines for over 20 years until retiring to care for her mother. Betty was preceded in death by her loving and caring husband of 62 years, Jim Powell. Betty is survived by her son, Chris, daughter-in-law, Jeannie, 3 wonderful grandchildren, Jeff, Kenny, and Amy, and her great-granddaughter, Kira Riley Powell, who was born the day after Betty's passing. Her family was the joy and love of her life. She was a loyal member of St. Michael the Archangel Episcopal Church, where she had many wonderful friends and served in the church choir for many years and helped with the church newsletter. She was an avid sports fan and never missed watching her favorite teams, especially the Los Angeles Lakers. A memorial service will be held Thursday, September 7th at St. Michael's Church, 361 Richmond Street. In lieu of flowers, donations may be made in her memory to St. Michael's Church and designated to either the Idle Crabble Music Fund or to Family Promise of South Bay to help shelter and feed homeless families in the South Bay. And with that, we are adjourned.